When Chi Yuan logged into the game again, he felt like making a video. Guys, what should I do? My family arranged a ghost marriage for me. Then, he would add a watermelon head effect. On TikTok, the comments might be, "Sister, stay strong." On some forum, the comments might be, "Brother, you are blessed." Of course, these are all stereotypes. These responses wouldn't solve Chi Yuan's current problem. He looked at his bride. He really wanted to see her face, her eyebrows, her arms, and her legs. Is it too much to want to see his bride? However, this bride had no face. Not only did she have no face, but she also had no hands or legs. No feet. Sigh, I just took a nap, and now I'm married to an NPC. Chi Yuan was in a place similar to a bridal chamber. On the window, there were paper flowers with the character, "She, happiness" written on them. As soon as he entered the game, he was lying next to his bride. His bride was a large red wedding dress, in an ancient Chinese style, like those in ghost movies. If you looked closely, you could almost imagine a delicate and graceful bride. He looked at the clothing monster, or rather, the wedding dress monster in front of him. He was helpless. "I really want to solve you with a sword and turn you into an experience pack." The red wedding dress seemed to understand Chi Yuan's words and shrank back a bit. However, Chi Yuan ultimately did not kill this NPC. When fighting the fallen Zone Lord, the ugly clothing monster Emperor, the blood-red gas had entered Chi Yuan's body. That gas was extremely troublesome for him, continuously weakening his attributes and even attempting to control his body. And that red gas had been dispelled by this wedding dress monster, Chi Yuan's bride. Since she had helped him, how could he bear to turn her into an experience pack? Moreover, this wedding dress monster seemed to have some intelligence. Unlike other clothing monsters that would attack Chi Yuan on sight. He looked at the wedding dress monster, now named Little Bride, who was only a step away from him, and slowly said, "Who are you, what's your name?" The wedding dress monster didn't answer, remaining motionless. "No name, don't remember, then let's call you Little Red, Little Monster, Little Bride." Finally, Chi Yuan decided on a name for the wedding dress monster. The wedding dress monster's name was temporarily set as Little Bride. Unfortunately, Little Bride had no face, no skin, no legs, no hands. Well, if sleeves and pant legs count, then she did. Sigh, I picked up a wife for nothing. Chi Yuan didn't know if he was happy or sad. This wife still couldn't communicate normally with him. "Why did you marry me?" Chi Yuan continued to try to communicate with Little Bride, although she didn't seem capable of communication. To his surprise, Little Bride responded this time. She threw out a wooden plaque from her red sleeve. The wooden plaque was very old, with 2 words written on it. Husband. Yes, it had the word, husband, on it. "You want me to be your husband? So you married me while I was offline?" Chi Yuan was speechless. He had met something more unreasonable than himself. And it was an NPC. "No way, we didn't go to the Civil Affairs Bureau, this doesn't count." Chi Yuan continued. He didn't want to be married to a piece of clothing. After all, brothers are like limbs, women are like clothes, but it can't literally be clothes, right? Otherwise, how to manage married life? Little Bride's sleeve clung tightly to Chi Yuan's arm, not letting go. She couldn't speak but expressed herself through actions. Chi Yuan was helpless. "Since you can use wooden plaques to communicate, at least take out more plaques and introduce yourself." Looking at the limited information about Little Bride, Chi Yuan noticed she only had 8 plaques. Where did they fall from? Chi Yuan stared at Little Bride's sleeve. "Can I put my hand in to find them?" Little Bride didn't retreat, meaning she didn't refuse. Chi Yuan put his hand into Little Bride's sleeve, reaching her chest, appendix, liver, but found nothing. Little Bride seemed to react strongly, falling to the ground. Chi Yuan stopped searching and helped her up, looking at the 8 plaques. 1 plaque had a man on it, with the word, husband. 1 had a wedding dress, with the word, wife. 1 had a smiling face. 1 had a crying face. 1 had a hugging image. 1 had an image of holding hands. 1 had a sleeping image. 1 had an image of lying down. Were you a meme creator in your past life? Chi Yuan couldn't help but joke. Seeing that Little Bride could express herself with wooden plaques, he tested her. He made some wooden plaques for her to express her thoughts. To his disappointment, it didn't work. Little Bride could only take out those 8 plaques. It seemed her world could only be expressed through these 8 plaques. "Sigh, let's get a divorce." Chi Yuan said, Our feelings are broken, let's divorce. Little bride held onto Qi Yuan's arm tightly, a wooden plaque with, holding hands, image slipping out. You can help me. Somehow, Qi Yuan seemed to understand the meaning of the image, both asking him to stay and implying she could help him. Qi Yuan became interested, looking at little bride. At this moment, a surprising event occurred. Little bride's entire cold body pressed against Qi Yuan's. A special change happened at this moment. In the bridal chamber, the blood-red wedding dress turned into red light spots, like red fireflies, falling onto Qi Yuan's body. In less than a fraction of a second, the red fireflies turned into red armor, covering Qi Yuan's body, leaving only his eyes exposed. From a distance, the armor appeared blood red, like flowing blood. Despite this fluid appearance, it gave Qi Yuan a strong sense of security. Exquisite and beautiful, mysterious and powerful. Qi Yuan, clad in blood armor, holding his great sword, now stood 10 meters tall. At this moment, he looked like a terrifying demon walking in hell. Qi Yuan felt a wedding dress tattoo on his chest. The tattoo was identical to Little Bride. He realized the tattoo was Little Bride's true form. The blood armor was Little Bride's defense, not her real body. Qi Yuan looked at himself and was stunned. Level 93. Combining with Little Bride, or rather merging with her, Qi Yuan had increased by 5 levels, reaching level 93. However, he vaguely felt this was temporary. This made him excited. That's 5 levels. Gaining 5 levels was a huge boost for Qi Yuan, making monster hunting much easier. Facing the 95-level ugly clothing monster emperor again, he wouldn't have to run away immediately and might even stand a chance, especially one-on-one. Of course, this one-on-one meant him and Little Bride against the ugly clothing monster emperor. At this moment, something unexpected happened to Qi Yuan. He simultaneously activated 2 skills. 1 major skill and 1 minor skill. Every 30 levels, Qi Yuan would get a major skill, usable in reality. Every 10 levels, he got a minor skill. Combining with Little Bride, Qi Yuan's level broke through 90, granting him 2 skills. The major skill was Together as One and the minor skill was Torn Clothes. Enhance your reading experience by removing ads for as low as $1. Remove ads from $1. Together as One. As long as Qi Yuan and Little Bride aren't too far apart, even if they can't see each other, Qi Yuan can use this major skill to merge with her. When using this skill, Qi Yuan can enjoy Little Bride's power. Torn Clothes. Qi Yuan's attacks always have armor-piercing properties against clothes and armor. These 2 skills are quite good. After all, Qi Yuan realized that if he normally leveled up to 90, he could get 2 skills. This meant he got 2 skills for free. Little Bride left his body. For some reason, Qi Yuan felt that he and this clothing monster had formed some kind of connection. He looked at Little Bride, staring at her intently. He wanted to see her eyes, but he couldn't. Are you sure you don't want a divorce? Qi Yuan said, after I clear this map, I might leave. In the past, there were love stories like Shu Xian and the Snake Demon, Dong Yang and the Seventh Fairy, and the monkey with his infatuated bird fairy. But he had never seen a person fall in love with an NPC. Let alone an NPC that's a piece of clothing. Little Bride trembled when she heard Qi Yuan's words, and a wooden plaque fell, with the image of a man and the words, husband. Qi Yuan picked up the plaque and thought for a while, then you are just my in-game partner. Right now, we're in a divorce cooling-off period. Once he clears the game, it would be the end. Another wooden plaque slipped from Little Bride's sleeve. A hugging image. If Little Bride had eyes, she would surely be looking at Qi Yuan expectantly. No hugs. What's the point of hugging? Merging is better. Qi Yuan looked at Little Bride and said slowly, let's merge. Seeing that Little Bride did not refuse, Qi Yuan used the skill Together as One. Merging using Together as One is different from when Little Bride merges with him voluntarily. He wanted to see the difference between the 2. In an instant, Little Bride once again appeared on his chest. A blood-red armor emerged on Qi Yuan's body again. Unlike when Little Bride voluntarily possessed him, this armor was covered with blood-red spikes, looking more dangerous and terrifying, with a more vibrant red color, not the previous dark red. If Little Bride's voluntary armor focused on defense and protection, Qi Yuan's use of Together as One emphasized attack. The level increase of 5 was still present. This increase was extremely terrifying. If I wear this armor and charge into the clothing monsters, who can stop me besides the Zone Lord? Qi Yuan felt that his game progress had accelerated significantly. What about the shared power? Qi Yuan sensed it. What's this? 1/3 control of the clothing restriction. Qi Yuan was stunned, not expecting this. However, Little Bride's control was clearly different from Qi Yuan's control over the Xuanyuan restriction. According to the game, Little Bride's control was soft, while Qi Yuan's was strong and hard. He lowered his head, his gaze passing through the red armor to see Little Bride imprinted on his chest. It seems she's also a big boss of the clothing restriction. Since we can share, there's no need to kill her. He pondered. To obtain the Heavenly Tao fragment and successfully establish a Heavenly Tao foundation, he must clear the clothing restriction in this game. Qi Yuan might seem unreliable at times, but he wouldn't make mistakes at critical moments. Power. Qi Yuan squinted, his figure flashed. This time, he appeared in the previous graveyard. 10 meters tall, he looked like a giant. He stared at a grave, shrinking to normal size. The grave was ordinary, even with a hole showing white centipedes crawling inside. Qi Yuan directly entered the hole. With Little Bride's shared power, Qi Yuan knew there was an underground palace beneath the grave. The underground palace buried the ancient emperors of the clothing restriction. The darkness of the hole was nothing to Qi Yuan. He carried his great sword, the red metal flowing, covering his sword. The once threatening underground palace now opened its doors wide for Qi Yuan, possibly due to Little Bride's possession. Walking through the underground palace, Qi Yuan looked at the surroundings, puzzled. Building such an underground palace shows the clothing monsters have intelligence. Why are the clothing monsters of Scene all bloodthirsty, crazy, and mindless? In the game, even if Qi Yuan didn't provoke the NPCs, they would attack him. It was as if these monsters wanted to tear all living beings to pieces. Little Bride was different from the NPCs Qi Yuan had seen. He suddenly remembered the information he saw about the ugly clothing monster emperor. Fallen Zone Lord, could it be that Little Bride hasn't fallen? Qi Yuan felt he had discovered the truth. Entering the depths of the underground palace, Qi Yuan suddenly froze. Is this the Qin Emperor's tomb? Before him were numerous black armors. Some held spears, others held halberds. They stood in the pit like a regimented army, motionless, yet Qi Yuan still felt their menacing military aura. Looking around, there were thousands upon thousands. They looked like terracotta warriors. But Qi Yuan had a feeling that once awakened, they would be the strongest army, invincible. Qi Yuan's gaze was drawn to a stone tablet. The tablet was densely inscribed with words. The 4 departments of the Divine Court: Clothing Department, Bridal Princess, Mistress of the Celestial Wife. Gather the world's battle armor, support the grandeur of the Divine Court, and shock the demons of the world, clothing the world. He read carefully. The stone tablet recorded many things, including an extremely powerful era. In the past, the celestial god established the Divine Court, commanding 4 departments, dominating the world, bringing peace to the land. The clothing department was the most prominent of the 4, its master leading the slaughter. The clothing department's elite army once flattened 10,000 mountains and endless plains, driving the demon race to the icy wastelands. The mistress of the clothing department, the bridal princess, was also the celestial god's wife. Qi Yuan thought of Little Bride. Could Little Bride be related to this bridal princess? He continued reading. The Divine Court ruled the 4 seas and 8 wastelands, maintaining peace for hundreds of years. The 4 department commanding Divine Court was invincible in the world. But when invincible in the world, enemies from the heavens came. One day, enemies from beyond the realm invaded Moonwatch continent. The Divine Court's ruler, the mighty celestial god, led his people to face the enemy. But he never returned. The 4 departments gradually declined. The last elite army of the clothing department was buried in the underground palace, waiting to revive one day, to fight for the celestial god and the world. So this is the game's setting. The 4 great forbidden zones should be the 4 departments of the Divine Court. The final boss should be the enemy from beyond the realm. My mission is to defeat the extraterrestrial invaders, protect the world, and receive the heavenly Tao reward. Sure enough, wearing the Emperor's armor means I must be a great hero protecting the world. As an inexperienced gamer, this was Qi Yuan's idea. I thought guarding a country like Jinli was tough, but this is the true hell difficulty. According to the records, the Divine Court ruled the world with nearly 100 countries. For the Heavenly Tao Foundation, I must fight. Now, I am Little Bride's man. Directly gaining 5 levels. That's too strong. In Moonwatch continent, somewhere, some murmurs arose, seemingly whispering. Enhance your reading experience by removing ads for as low as $1. Remove ads from $1. Qi Yuan half leaned against the coffin in the underground palace. He felt that the strange events of today should be shared with Jin Li. Jin Li, I have some good news and some bad news. Which do you want to hear first? In the palace, Jin Li, who was struggling with official documents, saw the flashing light of the Linglong Yushi. The corners of her mouth involuntarily lifted. The troubles of the Nangan kingdom seemed to dissipate. Let's hear the good news first. The good news is that I got married. Married. The bad news is, I married a bridal gown. Quote. Qi Yuan roughly recounted today's events to Jin Li. After hearing it, Jin Li inexplicably felt relieved. With Xiao Jia, I can definitely farm monsters faster. I estimate it won't take long to clear the Yiguan Forbidden Zone. How about your situation? Jin Li frowned as she read Qi Yuan's message, her mood clouded. After the late emperor passed away, all royal offspring were slaughtered, leaving only Jin Li as the sole survivor. One could say that the entire Nangan kingdom was under Sima Ting's control. However, to legitimize his rule and due to concerns about the Tianqi Grand General, who commanded troops outside and had become a regional warlord, as well as the Tianyan sacred sect, Sima Ting didn't directly usurp the throne. The recent duel arranged by the Nanfang Kingdom's national advisor was a conspiracy by Sima Ting. However, due to Xuanyuan Jin, Aunt Qin's breakthrough to the imperial level, the national advisor of Nanfang was defeated during the duel, thwarting Sima Ting's plot. Despite this, the power Jin Li controlled was far less compared to Sima Ting. It could be said that even when the late emperor was alive, he was already a puppet. Jin Li's ascension to the throne was merely nominal. Of the 6 departments, only Li Bu's grand scholar Kong Qi was not under Sima Ting's control. The only force Jin Li truly commanded was Aunt Qin, an imperial-level expert, and 2,000 royal guards. Unfortunately, even if they lured Sima Ting into the palace, Aunt Qin and the royal guards would find it difficult to kill him. Not to mention, Sima Ting's eldest son, Sima Ryu, was even more ambitious and ruthless. While Sima Ting still maintained some semblance of propriety, Sima Ryu would not. My situation is still difficult. The forces I control are too limited, Jin Li sighed. Although Xuanyuan Jin could enhance her subordinate's strength quickly, it wasn't enough for Jin Li to turn the tide swiftly. She would need several years or even decades of stable development to accumulate more imperial-level experts. The Nangan Kingdom publicly acknowledged only 3 imperial-level experts aside from Aunt Qin. Sima Ting openly commanded 2, with an unknown number in the shadows. Moreover, Jin Li couldn't recklessly send trusted aides to Xuanyuan Jin without attracting Sima Ting's attention. Sima Ting's power was so vast and inflated that he allowed Jin Li to leave the capital to visit Xuanyuan Jin last time. However, Aunt Qin revealing her imperial-level strength would undoubtedly make Sima Ting wary, making it much harder for Jin Li to leave the palace again. Your situation is worse than Emperor Xian of Han, Qi Yuan couldn't help but comment. At least during Emperor Xian's time, the people and lords superficially recognized the Lu royal family's legitimacy. In Jin Li's case, she was merely a figurehead. If she ever showed signs of threatening Sima Ting's power, he would likely discard all pretense and use force to eliminate her. How about you? How is your mission progressing? Jin Li gradually adapted to speaking on the same wavelength as Qi Yuan. I encountered a big boss. Quite strong, seemingly even the heavenly god wasn't his match. Heavenly god? Jin Li couldn't help but exclaim. Is it the heavenly god from mythology? I don't know, Qi Yuan replied. He had only seen records of the heavenly god in the Yiguan Forbidden Zone's underground palace, unsure if it was the one from legends. Then, be careful, don't forget, we still have to meet in person, Jin Li said. Qi Yuan shrugged. Unfortunately, I can't leave the Forbidden Zone now. Otherwise, I'd directly help you cut down Sima Ting and be done with it. But that might lower your mission rating and reduce your rewards. Currently, Qi Yuan had only unlocked the Xuanyuan Forbidden Zone and the Yiguan Forbidden Zone. He estimated that after clearing the Yiguan Forbidden Zone, other zones would unlock. Once all Forbidden Zones were cleared, he might unlock other maps, possibly enabling him to meet Jin Li in person. Qi Yuan was also curious to see what this girl, with whom he had chatted online for almost a year, looked like. High attractiveness would be ideal, but ordinary was acceptable too. Her personality might not be distinctive, but Qi Yuan found talking to her exceptionally comfortable. She displayed neither imperial majesty nor pretentiousness. Such a personality made her a wonderful confidant for Qi Yuan. After all, encountering someone like this, who could quietly accompany him through life's ups and downs, made the passage of time feel serene and worthwhile. Focus on your tasks. If something happens, I'll let you know, Jin Li said, feeling a surge of warmth. You too, although I might not be able to help much. From birth, Jin Li had never known family affection or genuine concern. Her father was a drunken, unpredictable figure who never showed her care. She had never met her mother. Aunt Qin was the only person who had been kind to her, and now there was Qi Yuan. The information you provided about the Yiguan Forbidden Zone was a big help. Unfortunately, I can't assist you now. Qi Yuan finished the message and looked at the buried Yibu soldiers before him, hatching an idea. Once I control the Yiguan Forbidden Zone, these Yibu soldiers should belong to me, right? Although these Yibu soldiers were not individually strong, their coordinated power should be enough to sweep through the world, at least outside the Forbidden Zones. In the Grand Minister's mansion, which resembled a palace, Sima Ting sat in a high seat, rolling a walnut in his hand, lost in thought. His eldest son, Sima Ryu, looked fierce. Father, let's rebel. This is getting boring. Sima Ting looked at his son without any change in expression. You may leave. I have matters to discuss with Uncle Wen. His son bore little resemblance to him, if not for his mother's connection to the Tianyan sacred sect. After Sima Ryu left, Sima Ting turned to the scholarly dressed man beside him. Brother Wen, have you found out why Lady Qin reached the imperial level? Is there someone behind Empress Jin Li targeting me or the Tianyan sacred sect? The scholarly man, Wen Zongyang, was an imperial level expert Sima Ting relied on. A member of the Tianyan sacred sect, Wen Zongyang was proficient in curse techniques. Despite the protection of the Tianyan Jade Seal, Wen Zongyang had cursed the late emperor to death, demonstrating his formidable skill. Enhance your reading experience by removing ads for as low as $1. Remove ads from $1. Wen Zongyang stood beside Sima Ting, slightly shorter in stature. According to our inside sources, this may be related to a certain individual. Last year, Empress Jin Li took a treasure from the royal treasury named Linglong Yushi. This treasure, Chancellor Sima Ting was surprised. This treasure, a natural pair, allowed its two holders to communicate with each other. But it was limited to these two people, which was inferior to modern communication artifacts. According to our inside sources, Empress Jin Li has been communicating with a mysterious person through Linglong Yushi. The breakthrough of Lady Qin to the imperial level might be attributed to this person. Wen Zongyang shared his judgment. Sima Ting's forehead furrowed more deeply, clearly showing his anger. Most palace maids were Sima Ting's people, making it easy to obtain this information. Furthermore, when Jin Li mentioned Qi Yuan's name during her time in the Xuanyuan Forbidden Zone, or occasionally muttered, Qi Yuan, in her chambers, it was only natural for such information to leak out. How dare they ruin my plans? Have you identified this person? Wen Zongyang shook his head. The other half of Linglong Yushi vanished 1,000 years ago. Can we speculate about this person's identity? Sima Ting asked. To help Lady Qin break through to the imperial level, this person must not be simple. Sima Ting had many enemies. Even within the Tianyan sacred sect, he had foes. Now, someone was aiding Empress Jin Li and causing him trouble, possibly targeting either him or the Tianyan sacred sect. The Tianyan sacred sect was the foremost sect of the human race, revered as a holy land by over a dozen human nations. Located in the far north, the sect both safeguarded human fortunes and kept the great demons of the demon race at bay. The Tianyan sacred sect stood aloof like celestial beings. However, in recent years, they began to meddle in worldly royal affairs. Sima Ting could be considered a pawn of the Tianyan sacred sect. Other countries were also gradually being devoured by the sect. Besides the Tianyan sacred sect, there were many other sects within the human race, many of which banded together to resist the sect. In Sima Ting's view, the person behind Linglong Yushi might be a powerful figure opposing the Tianyan sacred sect. However, a thought crossed his mind. Could it be the demon race? He was worried. Years ago, he had collaborated with a great demon to rise to power, but after aligning with the Tianyan sacred sect, he severed ties with the demon. He feared this matter might be related to that demon. His identity is not important, Wen Zongyang said confidently. As long as we know he is our enemy. Dare to disrupt the Chancellor's plans and the sacred sect's schemes, even if he is an unparalleled emperor, he must die. Are you planning to? Sima Ting was delighted. Yes, I know his name, Qi Yuan. Coupled with Linglong Yushi, I can curse him to death. Even if it's a false name, my curse technique will still work. Sima Ting expressed concern. What if he is an unparalleled emperor? Wen Zongyang took out a bamboo ruler. This is the ruler of nation, bestowed by the Tianyan Supreme Master. It contains the Master's unparalleled cultivation. With this, I can curse even an unparalleled emperor to death. This ruler was personally given by the Tianyan Supreme Master. Those who carried out his orders bore this item, traveling to various countries to gather fortune. What if he is just an ordinary person pretending to communicate with the Empress? Sima Ting asked. It won't harm me or him, just a waste of time. It can also serve as a warning to others. Please wait while I fetch the jade artifact to perform the curse. Even an unparalleled emperor will not escape death, Wen Zongyang declared with utmost confidence. Thank you, sir, Sima Ting replied, eager for the outcome. He hoped Qi Yuan was the demon he had once allied with, so he could secure his position as ruler of Nangan Kingdom. If not, Qi Yuan must die for aiding Empress Jin Li in opposing him, a capital offense. Tianyan Sacred Mountain, a holy land of the human race, stood tall enough to overlook the entire Huangyu continent. A plain-looking young man crawled out of a brothel, appearing relaxed and carefree. A journey of dust, a journey of beauty is far better, he mused. The young man's ordinary appearance would make him unremarkable on the street. Yet, if his identity were revealed, it would shock everyone. He was the Tianyan Supreme Master. 3,000 years, and I can finally leave Tianyan Mountain for 300 miles. Not bad, the Supreme Master thought. 3,000 years ago, a drop of blood had awakened his intelligence, transforming him from a land turtle into human form with eternal life. The blood had given him many secret techniques and knowledge, but at the cost of being unable to leave Tianyan Mountain. He cultivated in seclusion year after year, making slow progress due to his poor aptitude. It took him 500 years to reach the imperial level and another 1500 to become an unparalleled emperor. 20 years ago, he reached the legendary celestial realm. Despite his low aptitude, his survival instincts were sharp, often outlasting his enemies and then celebrating over their graves. He founded the Tianyan Sacred Sect, becoming its supreme master, while his elders remained unaware that each generation of supreme masters was just his various disguises. As he strolled, he hummed a tune. Indeed, I was too timid before. Stirring up the 1,000-year war between humans and demons, feeding on the blood and chi of the fallen, my progress was slow. Controlling the fortunes of the human race and demon bloodlines is the true path. Feeling his power surge, the Supreme Master lamented his poor aptitude. According to the secret techniques of the immortal blood, inciting wars provided him the blood and chi necessary for his gradual advancement. Human and demon races were naturally opposed, and it took little effort to manipulate them from the shadows. Yet, with his rapid power growth, he sought a more extreme method. Thus, he devised the most potent and sinister technique, the national fortune blood sacrifice. He sent the ruler of nation to various countries to absorb their fortunes. In 60 years, the ritual would be complete, and he would sacrifice the human and demon races, transcending to become the true ruler of Huangyu continent. Reflecting on his life, the Supreme Master felt proud. His life, though arduous, was ultimately successful, low profile yet victorious, and becoming powerful late in life. I once bowed to the powerful, and now I stir the winds with a word. No matter how talented you are, you too will become dust and a joke, he mused. The eternal evergreen immortal turtle has finally come into its own today. Often frequenting brothels, the Supreme Master hummed his tunes, though his literacy was poor, and his verses lacked proper structure. As he prepared to return to the sect for another seclusion, a crow flew overhead, bringing bad luck. With a flick, the crow died instantly. Feeling a sudden dread, the Supreme Master decided, no more roaming outside. No more brothels either. He made an uncharacteristic decision against his usual habits. Enhance your reading experience by removing ads for as low as $1. Remove ads from $1. In the Prime Minister's mansion of the Southern Qian Kingdom, the red creeper wood was burning with a crackling sound. The flames were a striking blood-red color, the perfect medium for the curse-killing technique. Wen Zongyang's sharp gaze held the fixed nation ruler in one hand and a whisk in the other. Chase the form 1,000 miles, spirit-fearing kill. Curse. As he spoke, the blood-red flames on the red creeper wood leapt nearly half a meter high. The red glow reflected on Wen Zongyang and Sima Ting's faces, making them look particularly eerie. Sima Ting, standing nearby, with his beard trembling, asked expectantly, "How is it, sir?" Wen Zongyang, holding the fixed nation ruler, replied calmly, "The curse-killing technique has been performed. We just need to wait a moment to see blood." He was already a royal-level powerhouse, and with the fixed nation ruler from the heavenly fate saint, even supreme emperors could be killed with this curse-killing technique. Sima Ting breathed a sigh of relief. "Thank you, sir," he said, draping a purple crane cloak over Wen Zongyang's shoulders. Boom! A sudden explosion shattered the silence. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere, covering Sima Ting in blood. His deep purple crane cloak was soaked in red, and he held onto the cloak filled with flesh and blood. "How could this be? How could this be?" Sima Ting muttered in disbelief, his face covered in blood and his beard stained with bits of flesh. Wen Zongyang had exploded. The sudden explosion of Wen Zongyang was due to the backlash from the curse-killing technique. Who on earth was the target? Even the fixed nation ruler was destroyed. Thousands of miles away, in the Heavenly Fate Sacred Gate. In an underground palace, the Heavenly Fate Lord was climbing into a coffin. This coffin was crafted with centuries of accumulation from the Heavenly Fate Sacred Gate, unrivaled in attack and defense. Earlier, outside Tianyan Mountain, upon seeing a crow fly by, he felt a premonition of disaster and rushed towards the coffin without making any arrangements. As he neared the coffin, he sensed a vast, irresistible force that seemed to transcend time and space, chasing after him. With wide eyes filled with confusion and unwillingness, he muttered, "Why?" He had painstakingly and low-key planned for 3,000 years, living like a turtle. He had thought he would rise to prominence, but unexpectedly, he met his end. It was as if a powerful being passing by had casually sneezed, instantly killing him. His meticulous planning turned into a joke. The Heavenly Fate Lord died a mysterious and tragic death. After about an incense stick of time, the corpse of the Heavenly Fate Lord exploded into pieces. A quarter of an hour later, a spider crawled into the underground palace. Half an hour later, two figures entered the underground palace. One of them looked exactly like the deceased Heavenly Fate Lord. This man was the Heavenly Fate Lord's stand-in, now the apparent Heavenly Fate Lord of the Heavenly Fate Sacred Gate. Seeing the shattered flesh before the coffin, he excitedly exclaimed, "That old turtle is finally dead." Beside him, a man in golden robes said indifferently, "My clan's ancestor personally performed the life-for-life technique. How could he survive?" Truth be told, the golden-robed man was still somewhat surprised. His ancestor, a supreme emperor, had sacrificed himself to perform the life-for-life technique, perishing alongside the Heavenly Fate Lord. Therefore, the golden-robed man had collaborated with the puppet saint of the Heavenly Fate Sacred Gate. He had thought that the life-for-life technique would only severely injure the Heavenly Fate Lord, but it had outright killed him. Though surprised, he claimed the credit. "That old turtle was always just posturing. Now that he's dead, the Heavenly Fate Sacred Gate is yours," the golden-robed man said to the stand-in. "Can our cooperation continue?" Of course, of course." The stand-in was immensely excited. After all, what could be more satisfying than a stand-in becoming the real deal? In the Palace of Attire, Qi Yuan sneezed. "Damn, I caught a cold," he muttered. Qi Yuan had just sneezed and felt a chill. Xiaojia followed behind him, maintaining a respectful distance. She seemed to understand Qi Yuan's words and slipped a stick-tight wooden plaque from her sleeve. Qi Yuan glanced at Xiaojia. "No thanks. Your material is too smooth. I'm afraid I'll get colder." After leaving the underground palace, Qi Yuan decided to bring Xiaojia along for some intense combat. With Xiaojia around, facing the ugly clothes monster king wouldn't be entirely disadvantageous. Qi Yuan planned to conquer the Palace of Attire during this period. With Xiaojia, he could level up 5 times directly. Level 90 and level 88 were two different concepts, a significant leap. "Let's go, teamwork makes the dream work." With Xiaojia in tow, Qi Yuan was brimming with confidence. The mountain was dark, lit only by a full moon hanging in the sky. Qi Yuan, holding his large sword, appeared once again in the sleeping area of the clothes monsters. "Kill!" With a shout, Qi Yuan charged in like a wolf among sheep, slashing mercilessly. Whatever suspender pants, stepmother skirts, all fell before him. His experience points soared. +200, +300. This time, Qi Yuan was bolder than before. After half an hour of slaughter, he quickly reached level 89. Just then, a chilling gaze locked onto him. "The ugly clothes monster king, you've come." Qi Yuan's spirits lifted. He immediately donned his blood-red battle armor, even turning his large sword red. His stature grew to 10 meters tall, although he could go higher, 10 meters was optimal for now. "Let's see if your health bar will drop." Facing the ugly clothes monster king, even at level 94, Qi Yuan felt some pressure. He unleashed his strongest move, the sky-splitting sword technique. Leaping up, the ground shook with his power, and a blood-red sword light descended from the sky. Crack! The sky-splitting sword technique struck the ugly clothes monster king. It raised a claw, a mix of pale and dark hues, to catch Qi Yuan's sword. The sword couldn't penetrate further, and the monster king looked at Qi Yuan without any emotion. Seeing this, Qi Yuan was stunned. Only a tiny bit of damage. Time to run. Realizing the difficulty, Qi Yuan decided to flee. Seems like level 95 is a major threshold. Switching his battle armor to defense mode, he made his escape. Without Xiaojia's armor, escaping would be much harder, perhaps even impossible. But now, he could flee openly, no longer scurrying like a rat. After escaping, Qi Yuan felt great. In the past, the ugly clothes monster king would have been a significant challenge. Now, it's just a matter of 4 or 5 days. He planned to use Xiaojia's armor to level up to 90. By then, the ugly clothes monster king wouldn't stand a chance. At that time, it would be a matter of whether the monster king's claw was harder or Qi Yuan's sword sharper. Enhance your reading experience by removing ads for as low as $1. Remove ads from $1. Qi Yuan returned to the graveyard and dug a pit for himself. I'm not sleeping in the bridal chamber. I don't like lying on hard boards, Qi Yuan said earnestly to Xiaojia, who stood behind him. Xiaojia followed silently. Qi Yuan jumped into the pit. Suddenly, he heard a thud from outside the pit. He quickly climbed out and saw Xiaojia had tripped over a stone and fallen. He helped Xiaojia up and brushed the dirt off her. Sure enough, not having eyes is a problem. You keep falling. Over time, Qi Yuan had discovered many of Xiaojia's traits, such as her tendency to trip and knock things over in the house. When I get married, I'll definitely find someone with eyes, Qi Yuan sighed. He thought for a moment, then hugged Xiaojia as if collecting clothes in the rain, and dove back into the pit. In the forbidden land of Yin and Yang, a valley with dozens of coffins lay quietly. Crack! The lids of the coffins flipped open. Dozens of humanoid creatures sat up. They were men and women, exuding a vast aura. If Qi Yuan saw them, his eyes would shine with excitement. They were all level 90 NPCs, some even above level 95. The strongest among them, a man with a vertical pupil on his forehead, gazed through the forbidden land of Yin and Yang, seemingly seeing the forbidden land of clothing. He spoke slowly, his voice neither male nor female. Another fellow cultivator will soon join us in the human realm. Congratulations. Who would have thought that despite the extraterrestrial demons severing all connections and fishing under the moon, someone could still ascend to the heavenly realm? Thousands of years ago, after the heavenly god left and never returned, the moon-gazing continent underwent terrifying changes. Martial artists trained through various levels. Postnatal 0 to 9 and 8 10 to 19 Grandmaster 20-29 King 30 to 49 Emperor 50 to 69 Heavenly Realm 70 to 89 and Divine Realm. Any martial artist who broke through the Emperor level to reach the heavenly realm would have a fishing line descend from the sky, pierce their body, and drain their brains and blood. In the end, only an empty skin would remain. Thus, in the past 10,000 years, almost no new heavenly realm powerhouses emerged on the moon-gazing continent. Does anyone know his origins? Asked a fairy in white. If Qi Yuan saw her, he would recognize her as a level 97 powerhouse who had a fleeting romance with the heavenly god 10,000 years ago. Burial Flower Fairy. He comes from the forbidden land of clothing, likely reaching this point with the resources of the bride princess, said an old man, sneaking a glance at the fairy. HMPH, it seems that golden armor left that wretched woman quite a few good things, the Burial Flower Fairy mocked. Golden armor was the name of the heavenly god. The others fell silent, not wanting to provoke the Burial Flower Fairy. The man with the vertical pupil, a towering figure, spoke with a thunderous voice. Since he is about to enter the divine realm and is the husband of the new bride princess, he should be our fellow cultivator. 300 years from now, during the celestial event of the heaven-devouring dog swallowing the moon, when the extraterrestrial demons are at their weakest, will be the time for us to attack the forbidden land of absolute Earth. The extraterrestrial demons had occupied the forbidden land of absolute Earth, causing chaos in the human realm. The heavenly realm and divine realm powerhouses had to hide in the forbidden land of Yin and Yang and the five elements forbidden land. They had secretly cultivated for thousands of years, accumulating power to strike when the demons were at their weakest, planning to hold a demon-slaying assembly to attack the forbidden land of absolute Earth and defeat the demons. Otherwise, if the demons fully occupied the forbidden land of absolute Earth and could act freely on the moon-gazing continent, even the forbidden lands of yin and yang and 5 elements couldn't stop them, leading to their ultimate demise. This invitation to the demon-slaying assembly should be extended, the man with the vertical pupil declared. But he hasn't entered the divine realm yet. He might not even pass the test of the ugly clothes monster king, a man said, trying to curry favor with the burial flower fairy. The burial flower fairy disliked the bride princess and naturally wouldn't like her husband either. The man who spoke admired the burial flower fairy and thus echoed her sentiments. With the bride princess's help, killing the ugly clothes monster king is just a matter of time. It's a pity, why did the bride princess choose him as her husband? If she chose Tong, or at least one of us, our strength would greatly increase, and the demon-slaying assembly would be more assured. Alas, in just 300 years, even with the bride princess's support, his combat power might only be close to the weaker leaders, an old man lamented. Tong, the man with the vertical pupil, was their leader and a peak divine realm powerhouse. There were 3 such powerhouses, 1 in the forbidden land of yin and yang and 2 in the 5 elements forbidden land. The heavenly god, back then, was at this level. The burial flower fairy and others, between levels 95 and 98, were leaders of the divine realm. The bride princess's husband, not yet in the divine realm, even with her support, would only be a second-tier leader in a few hundred years. For these leaders, the bride princess's help could elevate their power to the peak of the divine realm or even higher, giving them better odds against the demons. What's the use of saying this? Would any of you dare leave the forbidden land of yin and yang to find the bride princess? Besides, we didn't even know a new bride princess had been born, a fat man mocked, also a leader. Some were displeased, others silent. I just think it's a waste for the bride princess to marry him. Sigh, the extraterrestrial demons are terrifying. Even the heavenly god wasn't their match. Can we win the demon-slaying assembly 300 years from now? The heavenly god, the most talented powerhouse of 10,000 years ago, had suppressed even Tong and the peak divine realm powerhouses in the 5 elements forbidden land. The heavenly god was defeated, could they win? Giving up before the battle, old Tang, are you scared? I remember your favorite grandson was taken by the demons, fishing line, his flesh devoured. Every bit of strength is crucial for us. No matter what, the bride princess's husband is our fellow cultivator. How can we speak ill of him? It's just, the bride princess is wasted on him. If she chose Tong, she could create a second heavenly god, even stronger. The group argued, each with their own thoughts. Tong then spoke with a chilling tone, enough, with the enemy at the gate, no internal strife. Molly, send an invitation to that fellow cultivator for the demon-slaying assembly. Yes, sir, replied Molly. In the forbidden land of clothing, Qi Yuan, about to log off, was stunned. An invitation. A letter appeared on Xiaojia, an invitation. 300 years from now. Demon-slaying assembly. Screw that, in 300 years, my daughter will be dominating the universe. Enhance your reading experience by removing ads for as low as $1. Remove ads from $1. Qi Yuan noted the invitation. However, a demon-slaying assembly 300 years later. How could he possibly wait that long? In 300 years, even the Qing dynasty would have perished, right? He no longer paid attention to it and logged off swiftly. As the annoying wooden cat puppet meowed incessantly once again, Qi Yuan did not toss a small wooden fish into its mouth this time. He got up, patted the wooden cat puppet's head, and looked at the beautiful morning light outside. The best plan of the day lies in the morning. He invigorated himself, and his gaze fell into his storage bag. When he saw the pile of books and jade slips of martial arts techniques, his face immediately fell. Coming to another world, and still having to work 996. In the Black Mountain sect, Qi Yuan had exerted great effort to empty the library and acquire the jade slips of martial arts techniques. For Qi Yuan, martial arts techniques were the most important things. After all, most of the martial arts techniques in this world were not suitable for him. He needed to read other books, use the information his eyes absorbed to accumulate knowledge, and ultimately perfect his own martial arts techniques. Last time, using the jade slips of martial arts techniques from his junior sister Zhongling Su, with more than 600 techniques, Qi Yuan had spent 2 days roughly going through them. Now, the number of techniques he had to read far exceeded 600, and books were much harder to absorb than jade slips. Moreover, last time, it was just techniques for the Qi refining stage, which he could glance over quickly. Now, to perfect techniques for the foundation establishment stage, he had to read them carefully. So many books could definitely not be read in just a month. Qi Yuan buried himself in the books, reading them diligently. He read with great seriousness, because these books were the foundation for creating his foundation establishment techniques. He read the dry martial arts techniques even more attentively than advanced mathematics. Unfortunately, he read incredibly slowly. A single book took a long time to get through, far from being like quantum reading. It's better to establish the heavenly Tao foundation soon so that divine sense can be externalized. That way, reading won't be so tiring. Qi Yuan flipped through a book, thinking how useful divine sense was. Unfortunately, it could only be externalized after reaching the foundation establishment stage, enabling quantum reading. For several days in a row, Qi Yuan read books during the day and logged into the game at night. With the assistance of Little Bride, Qi Yuan was now able to dominate the Yiguan Forbidden Land. Although he still couldn't kill the ugly-clothed emperor, with his increasing strength, he could at least injure him. The terrifying ugly-clothed emperor had no way to deal with Qi Yuan. He could only let Qi Yuan wreak havoc in the Yiguan Forbidden Land. Strong sword splits skull. I have no head, how can you split my skull? As always, Qi Yuan provided voiceovers for the clothed monsters in the Yiguan Forbidden Land, entertaining himself and finding some amusement. Otherwise, the tedious monster slaying time would be too dull. The experience bar soared. At level 89, he wasn't far from reaching level 90. Qi Yuan glanced at the approaching ugly-clothed emperor from afar. Time to leave. He was too lazy to fight the ugly-clothed emperor, preferring to wait until he reached level 90 for a better chance. Qi Yuan quickly exited. He had killed enough for today. Staying online any longer would be unbearable for his mind. After unmerging from Little Bride, Qi Yuan, as usual, dug a pit. Suddenly, he noticed a tree with a crooked neck in the graveyard, bearing several purple fruits. They looked like a cross between grapes and apples. He picked some, took a bite, and the sour taste exploded on his taste buds like that of a yummy. Not bad. Do you want to try one? He handed one to Little Bride. Little Bride didn't respond. Qi Yuan sighed. Without a mouth, you can't eat or. We really have to get a divorce. Little Bride felt wronged, sliding out a placard that read, Tai Tai. Tai Tai means, stick together, or, stick closer. Qi Yuan smiled, embraced Little Bride, and dived into the pit. He found a comfortable position, like a salted fish lying on a bed, holding the cool Little Bride, then messaged Jin Li. However, he glanced down at the quiet and cute Little Bride. He was stunned for a moment. Having a wife but chatting with a female netizen, wasn't that considered cheating? It seemed after the divorce, the court would definitely rule for him to compensate her. He had nothing but a great sword. Without thinking too much, Qi Yuan resumed his daily chat with Jin Li. Jin Li was like a breeze by the river at night, cool and gentle, caressing one's body like a fine drizzle. Any movements from Sima Ting? Be careful, I'm almost done sweeping the Yiguan Forbidden Land. Maybe I can help you. Good night, too tired, can't stay up playing games anymore, have to get up early to read books. Seeing these messages, Jin Li, dressed in a gauzy robe, replied, good night. At this moment, her face was clouded with worry. A few days ago, an imperial-level expert from the Chancellor's mansion had died mysteriously. For Jin Li, this should have been good news, but she couldn't feel happy at all. Sima Ting and she maintained a delicate balance. Now, with the death of an imperial-level expert, Sima Ting might no longer care about appearances and legitimacy and could forcibly stage a coup. Recently, the military movements of the southern Qian kingdom had been extremely frequent. Jin Li could already feel the murderous aura of the army pervading the capital. And all she could rely on was merely 1,000 imperial guards. The royal authority had been shelved 20 years ago. Now, how could she turn the tide? Exhausted and filled with intense drowsiness, Jin Li gradually fell asleep. What she didn't know was that a major event was being plotted in the Chancellor's mansion at that very moment. The once arrogant and noble Chancellor Sima Ting was now like a hound, hunched over. Beside him were two people, one fat and one thin. The fat one was a great demon Sima Ting was most unwilling to meet. Years ago, when he rose to power, he had borrowed the strength of this great demon. This was his weakness. The thin one was an imperial-level expert from the Heavenly Fate Holy Sect. He hadn't expected the two to be in collusion. And now, the two most powerful forces in this world had set their sights on the southern Qian kingdom. The pressure fell on him. The thin imperial-level expert squinted his eyes. Sima Ting, they are merely some mortal soldiers. Why the hesitation? This will be a great merit for you. In 3 years, when the Holy Lord's plan succeeds, you can choose any of these dozens of countries. The demon imperial level expert then laughed heartily. To accomplish great things, one cannot be petty. A few days ago, they, the demon clan, cooperated with a stand-in for the Heavenly Fate Holy Lord to assassinate the true Heavenly Fate Holy Lord. As a price, the Heavenly Fate Holy Sect had ceded the southern Qian kingdom to the demon clan. Now, this demon imperial level expert had brought the Supreme Royal Order to serve as the vanguard. The vanguard was simple: weaken the military forces of the southern Qian kingdom and forge a supreme imperial weapon, the bloodless imperial staff. The creation of this staff required extremely harsh conditions. Thus, he connected with the Heavenly Fate Holy Sect to pressure Sima Ting. They needed Sima Ting to mobilize his troops into the capital, set up a grand formation, accumulate the murderous aura of the military, and then massacre the city to saturate it with blood, finally forging the supreme imperial weapon, the bloodless imperial staff. All this required was Sima Ting's foundation, his army and the entire capital of the southern Qian kingdom. Sima Ting wanted to oppose it, but facing the two most powerful forces in this world, he could only submit. His life was now in their hands. Hearing the imperial level expert from the Heavenly Fate Holy Sect offer some benefits, he could only swallow his resentment. Everything is as the Lord's command. The troops are already slowly entering the city. Previously, Sima Ting had deployed his troops outside the capital city. Now, it was just a matter of letting these troops enter the city, which would be swift. Sima Ting, very good, ambitious, knowing when to advance and retreat. The Heavenly Fate Holy Sect will not treat you poorly. The thin imperial level expert patted Sima Ting's shoulder, very satisfied. Once this is done, you'll have a plaque as a hall elder. In the Heavenly Fate Holy Sect, your status won't be lower than mine. Sima Ting was delighted to hear this. That was what he longed for. With the plaque of a hall elder, he would be a player looking down on a dozen countries. Not a pawn, despite having strong power, but still at the mercy of others. Thank you, my lord. The demon imperial level expert then grinned broadly. I heard the female emperor of the southern Qian kingdom is a stunning beauty. I've always loved collecting wine vessels. When the capital falls, leave the head of that female emperor for me. The head of a beauty, especially a female emperor, would make the wine taste exquisite, most fitting. Sima Ting shuddered at these words but still nodded in agreement. All right. Enhance your reading experience by removing ads for as low as $1. Remove ads from $1. The next day, in the court, dark clouds loomed. Kong Qi, the Minister of Rights, clad in deep attire, tall and handsome, usually dignified, now wore a face full of anger. Prime Minister, for 3 consecutive days, why have the Dragon War Army, Black Flag Army, and Liaodong Army openly entered the capital? Could it be, you are planning a rebellion? The court was silent. Except for a few officials, most were utterly obedient to Sima Ting. Now, the entry of the 3 armies was what they had been eagerly awaiting. The southern Qian kingdom had long needed a change. Of course, they didn't know that these troops entering the capital were not for a coup but rather, they were merely sacrificial lambs. And they themselves were also sacrificial lambs, no different from those soldiers and common people. Sima Ting, walking with the bearing of a dragon and tiger, responded to the Minister of Rights. The entry of the 3 armies is in accordance with the Ministry of War's orders, compliant with the laws of southern Qian. Minister, your groundless speculation and attack on me, disregarding the court's laws, is what is truly absurd. The other officials burst into laughter. Great sage Kong Qi, known for his gentle temperament and upright character, always hailed as a sage. But at this moment, he was also enraged by Sima Ting. Sima Ting's intentions are known to everyone. Great sage Kong Qi said, suddenly bursting into tears, the entire court, and yet, not a single person. Southern Qian is doomed. The other officials looked at Kong Qi with mocking expressions. Kong Qi was a competent sage, but certainly not a mature official. At this moment, Duke Yu, who had remained silent, spoke up. Prime Minister, does His Majesty know the purpose behind gathering the 3 armies into the city? Sima Ting glanced at Duke Yu, not expecting this old turtle to speak up for Jin Li. However, none of this mattered anymore. Isn't His Majesty already aware now? Sima Ting looked at Jin Li, seated on the throne, his eyes smiling, showing no respect at all. The former emperor had been his puppet. Jin Li had been placed on the throne by him personally. It could be said that the entire court was filled with his people. He continued, recently, there have been demons causing trouble in the capital. To ensure His Majesty's safety, I have assembled the 3 armies in the capital. During this period, a curfew will be imposed in the capital, allowing entry but not exit. After half a month, once the demons are eradicated, the 3 armies will leave the capital, so there is no need for panic. After speaking, Sima Ting turned and left without even pretending. The other officials also left one after another. Many officials discreetly saluted Jin Li before hastily departing. In the large palace, only a few officials remained, along with a troubled Jin Li. When Jin Li, exhausted, returned to her bedchamber, she glanced at the exquisite jade in her hand. If the kingdom perished and she died, could the promise made back then still be fulfilled? She looked up at the towering ancient catalpa tree, lost in thought. At this moment, Aunt Chin entered, her face full of fatigue and a hint of anger. Your Majesty, the 3 armies have already entered, and the city gates are sealed. If Sima Ting reveals his true intentions, I will risk my life to take your Majesty out of here. The commander of the Imperial Guards, Hua Xian, knelt on one knee. I am willing to die for your Majesty. Jin Li looked at those loyal to her and slowly said, I'm sorry, for you all. She had never been a competent empress. Even her cultivation had been secretly sabotaged by Sima Ting's people, progressing slowly. Sima Ting is ambitious and will probably act within half a month. I cannot leave the capital. But you still have a chance. Leave the capital and go to Xuanyuan Forbidden Land. You can escape this disaster. Jin Li arranged an escape route for Aunt Chin and her other confidants. At this moment, Aunt Chin's eyes turned deep. Your Majesty, Sima Ting's ambitions may not be just about usurping the throne. In the Prime Minister's mansion, I detected several extremely obscure and powerful auras, including those of the Demon Clan. Demon Clan? Jin Li was stunned. And the demonic auras outside the city seem even stronger, with no less than 3 royal-level experts. What? Jin Li was completely shocked. She didn't know what Sima Ting was planning. Under the moonlight, Qi Yuan, clad in blood-red armor, exerted his combat power to the fullest. He was like a giant, raging dinosaur. With a single charge, several clothed monsters were slain. The experience bar surged. Suddenly, Qi Yuan shouted, Level 90. He finally reached level 90. Level 90, according to the classifications of Wangyu continent, was a god-level expert above the heavenly domain. There was a qualitative difference from level 89. Qi Yuan could feel his strength, speed, physique, and other aspects all skyrocketing. If previously he feared being besieged by clothed monsters and only dared to appear at night, now he had no fear. He could now hunt monsters during the day, killing as many clothed monsters as came his way. 2 new skills. Upon reaching level 90, he gained 2 new skills. He thought Little Bride was truly the best clothed monster ever. Wearing it not only increased his level by 5 but also gave him 2 free skills. He began to examine his skills. Stabilize Soul. The first small skill was called Stabilize Soul, which could fix his soul, enabling him to maintain clarity when facing illusions and fantasies. Death's Radiance. The major skill was Death's Radiance. Looking at this major skill, Qi Yuan couldn't help but click his tongue. This skill was about dancing on the edge of death. At the brink of death, on the verge of dying, it could unleash the most dazzling light, the most powerful combat force. Moreover, this was not only a battle-enhancing skill but also a self-healing skill. Injuring the enemy could absorb their life force to heal his own wounds. Simply put, the lower his health, the stronger he became, and it also had life-stealing and mana-stealing abilities. Why not give me a serpent's fangs? I would be invincible. Qi Yuan felt that this skill was somewhat dangerous and needed to be paired with serpent's fangs. That way, he might even be able to carry the enemy's crystal. However, it's already pretty good. At full health, using Death's Radiance can still exert twice the combat power. Holding the blood-red greatsword, Qi Yuan's gaze penetrated the forbidden land of the clothed, looking to the deepest part. Ugly Clothed Emperor. No, Clothed Emperor, here I come. At the deepest part of the forbidden land of the Clothed Emperor, who had been watching Qi Yuan, swiftly approached him. In an instant, the two rushed toward each other and clashed fiercely. Ah! The red aura on Qi Yuan's blood-colored armor seemed about to overflow. He raised his sword, and the sword, originally only a few meters long, suddenly extended to over 1,000 meters in the red aura. Take my sword. With Death's Radiance, Qi Yuan's fighting style completely changed. He pursued the strongest attack in the widest range of destruction. Although the residual waves couldn't hurt the clothed emperor, they could kill other clothed monsters. These provided experience points and enemies for life stealing. More importantly, he didn't have to worry about running out of mana, so he could unleash his full power. Today, I will slay you. Enhance your reading experience by removing ads for as low as $1. Remove ads from $1. The massive blood-red sword, with a single slash, held a power that even the divine realm couldn't ignore. Not to mention, Qi Yuan was already at level 95. According to the classifications of Wangyu continent, this was already considered the late stage of the divine realm. One more step, and he would become a major powerhouse. The immense shockwave uprooted trees, and hundreds of clothed monsters lost their courage and souls, becoming the nourishment for death's radiance. With one sword stroke separating the world, Qi Yuan's experience surged crazily, and the form of the ugly clothed emperor appeared somewhat disheveled. Several black claws on its massive paw were broken, revealing white flesh underneath. The ugly clothed emperor, seemingly devoid of intelligence, didn't care about the pain of its injuries and continued charging at Qi Yuan. It seems today we not only decide the victor but also life and death. Qi Yuan wielded his giant sword with ease, without the slightest instability. He now felt as though he could slash down a mountain with a single stroke. Of course, not a mountain within the Forbidden Land. The terrain here was special. With each sword swing, the wind and clouds moved. His activated minor skill, rending clothes, had an advantage against the ugly clothed emperor and other clothed monsters. Rending clothes had an armor-piercing effect on clothes and armor. And for the ugly clothed emperor, being inherently made of clothes, bathing was like washing clothes. Rending clothes didn't just break their armor, it tore their very essence. The ugly clothed emperor's mask, black and white with no color, clashed with the sharp sword and eerie claws. Claws broke, flesh peeled back, exposing ghastly white bones. You have bones? Qi Yuan was a bit surprised. The ugly clothed emperor remained silent, its horrifying mask staring at him. In the eerie silence of the forbidden land of the clothed, the scene was terrifying. The two clashed again. Throughout the forbidden land of the clothed, countless clothed monsters were killed by the shockwaves of their battle. The ugly clothed emperor's injuries grew more severe, looking increasingly miserable. On the other hand, Qi Yuan fought more fiercely as the battle progressed. He surveyed the now nearly ruined forbidden land of the clothed, and his giant sword shrank. This place is soon going to be shaped by me, I can't destroy it further. He held his sword, ready to end this pointless battle. Dominant power, sky-slashing sword technique, two major skills used simultaneously, his most powerful strike in a normal state. Boom, the blood-red sword thrust toward the ugly clothed emperor. To Qi Yuan's slight surprise, the ugly clothed emperor didn't dodge or couldn't dodge in time. It allowed Qi Yuan's terrifying strike to pierce its chest. It looked at Qi Yuan, the expressionless black and white clown mask seemingly showing a hint of relief. This strike ended all its vitality. Then, its body collapsed. In the air, a layer of human skin floated. A faceless mask also fell to the ground. Qi Yuan looked at the human skin, feeling an inexplicable sorrow. He picked up the faceless mask, and images flooded his mind. You are the most gifted in the clan, with the potential to reach the pinnacle of the heavenly realm. However, with the demonic scourge patrolling Wangyu continent, you must hide your identity and not reveal your talent. This is the faceless mask. From now on, you will wear this mask and leave the clan. One day, when you reach the Supreme Emperor's realm, you will enter the four forbidden lands. Remember, never step into the heavenly realm outside. Qi Yuan saw a plain-looking boy, barely considered handsome, donning the faceless mask, abandoning his name, and forgetting his past. But when he arrived at the forbidden land of the clothed, stepping into the heavenly realm, he was greeted by a fish line descending from the sky. All his blood and vitality were drained in an instant. Only a layer of human skin remained, attached to a clothed monster. Qi Yuan involuntarily looked up at the sky. Fishline. Demonic scourge. He recalled the invitation to the demon-slaying conference. The big boss of this world has some strong methods. He looked at the human skin. NPCs can be quite human too. Killing him got me to level 91, almost at level 92. He picked up the faceless mask and put it on. At this moment, a prompt sounded in Qi Yuan's ear. The forbidden land of the clothed dungeon has been cleared, rewards received. Reward 1. Polluted Heavenly Dao Fragment 10. Reward 2. Control of the forbidden land's forbidden guards. Polluted Heavenly Dao Fragments. Qi Yuan was stunned. In the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land, he didn't encounter such a problem. The heavenly Tao fragments then were intact. Qi Yuan immediately thought of the scene where the fishline from the sky drained the previous form of the ugly clothed emperor. So, this forbidden land has been polluted by the so-called demonic scourge. I need to kill the demonic scourge to get complete heavenly Tao fragments. However, according to the invitation, the demonic scourge is in Earth Abyss. To obtain complete heavenly Tao fragments, I must go to Earth Abyss. This doesn't really affect me, though, it just means I can't fully control the forbidden land of the clothed. That meant he couldn't set the rule for the forbidden land of the clothed to be as accessible as a back door. No, my mind is too exhausted today, I need to log off quickly. Although Qi Yuan wasn't injured in today's battle, his mental energy was greatly consumed. The Qi regeneration from Death's Radiance couldn't replenish the mental energy drained from playing the game for too long. Staying in the game too long would harm his real-life self significantly. Qi Yuan held Little Bride close, and this time, instead of digging a pit, they both lay flat together. In the palace, the lights were bright. Imperial guards surrounded the outside, and a tense and murderous atmosphere filled the entire palace. To Jin Li's surprise, after summoning Kong Qi during the day, Duke Yu also sought an audience, expressing considerable dissatisfaction with Sima Ting. His words subtly suggested that Jin Li should escape if possible. Jin Li understood these reasons. But she couldn't leave. The night was deep, and she tossed and turned. Now, the only thing that could lift her spirits was talking with Qi Yuan. Unfortunately, it was already late, and Qi Yuan hadn't sent any messages. She wondered how he was doing in the forbidden land of the clothed. She wondered if she could survive this ordeal. The ancient catalpa tree was visible but untouchable. At this moment, a faint light flickered from the exquisite jade. Jin Li loosened her grip and looked at the message inside. I have good news to tell you, I've conquered the forbidden land of the clothed. The forbidden land of the clothed is mine. I need to log off now, I've expended too much energy today, I'll go to another forbidden land tomorrow. Seeing this, Jin Li felt a small weight lift off her chest. The forbidden land of the clothed was finally taken by Qi Yuan. Be careful. After sending the message, Jin Li felt her face warm. She recalled seeing her female imperial guards whisper similar words to their husbands. She thought of her recent predicament, originally wanting to tell Qi Yuan in person. But seeing that Qi Yuan seemed exhausted, she decided to wait until he rested well to tell him. However, the exquisite jade flickered again. Little Jin Li, I have a brilliant plan to help you stabilize southern Qian. Do you want to hear it? Enhance your reading experience by removing ads for as low as $1. Remove ads from $1. Jin Li was momentarily stunned. I'm currently in the forbidden land of the clothed and have subdued a group of minions. These minions should be strong enough to defeat Sima Ting without much trouble. Should I send them over to help you? Qi Yuan had always kept Jin Li's situation in mind. Since he had subdued the forbidden land of the clothed's forbidden guards, he thought it best to send them quickly to assist Jin Li. Delaying even one day could lead to irreparable regret. Jin Li felt a surge of immense joy. If Qi Yuan were by her side, she couldn't imagine what kind of crazy or impulsive actions she might take at this moment. She was willing to sacrifice herself but feared she wasn't worthy of him. Happy now, Qi Yuan boasted, I'm helping you cheat. He suddenly felt like a wealthy player in a game, spending thousands of dollars, while Jin Li was just a regular player. A regular player was experiencing the benefits of a wealthy player's assistance. More importantly, when he was gravely ill and living alone, Jin Li was the only light he saw. However, sending them might be slow, and they'll have to attack from outside the city. If no one is there to protect you, Sima Ting might get desperate. How about this? Build a sacrificial altar, conduct a ritual, and the forbidden guards will appear. It should take about 3 days. Qi Yuan detailed the method of summoning the forbidden guards to Jin Li, which took about half an hour. Exhausted, Qi Yuan finally logged off. Little Bride quietly held Qi Yuan, unmoving, as if Qi Yuan was her everything. Summon the forbidden guards. Jin Li's eyes gleamed with joy. There was both the relief of surviving a disaster and the joy of possibly seeing Qi Yuan. Someone, summon Minister of Rights Kong Qi. Jin Li began, then added another name, summon Duke Yu. About half an hour later, Kong Qi and Duke Yu stood in the palace hall. Aunt Qin, Flower Immortal, and others stood to the side. They looked at Empress Jin Li with a trace of confusion in their eyes. Minister Kong, I wish to build a sacrificial altar. Here is the blueprint. How many days will it take? Empress Jinli handed a blueprint to Flower Immortal, who then passed it to Kongqi. This blueprint was drawn by Jinli herself. Kongqi took the blueprint and examined it carefully. After a while, his eyes filled with confusion. Your Majesty, this sacrificial altar can be built in 4 to 5 days. But may I ask, Your Majesty, what is the purpose of building this altar? Kongqi was very puzzled. Duke Yu, standing nearby, was also somewhat confused. With Sima Ting's treacherous ambitions, shouldn't they be figuring out how to counter or escape him? Why build a sacrificial altar now? Jin Li's expression turned cold and stern. Just do it, do not ask why. This. Kongqi looked troubled. Although I am the Minister of Rites, the Ministry of Rites is actually under that traitor Sima Ting's control. To mobilize resources to build the sacrificial altar, I need a suitable reason. Aunt Qin, hearing this, was somewhat dissatisfied. Is the Empress's decree not enough? Although she didn't understand why the Empress wanted this, she always supported the Empress's decisions. The reason, say it's for me to worship the heavens and ancestors. Is that reason enough? Jin Li spoke, feeling a bit distressed inside. Indeed, she had no control over the 6 ministries. She was like a mascot, her life and death entirely dependent on Sima Ting's whims. Your Majesty, I'm afraid, it won't work. Kongqi knelt, prostrating himself on the ground, his face filled with shame. I have failed to live up to the imperial grace. Though he was renowned in southern Qian, he couldn't even control the Ministry of Rites. However, Kongqi raised his head again. Your Majesty, the urgent matter is to leave the capital. Building a sacrificial altar is not significant. Please prioritize the bigger picture and discuss plans to leave the capital, go to Yanbei Pass, and order General Tianqi to fight the traitor. In Kongqi's view, what use was building a sacrificial altar? The priority was for the Empress to leave the capital. As long as General Tianqi remained loyal to southern Qian, the Empress would still be the Empress. Jin Li remained silent. Building the sacrificial altar was crucial. However, she couldn't reveal that it would summon the forbidden guards. If Sima Ting heard of it, he might take precautions. Though it sounded bizarre, like a fairy tale, what if Sima Ting was cautious? Duke Yu, standing nearby, also spoke softly, Your Majesty, it is better to leave the capital now. Only by leaving the capital can there be a chance of survival. Most present knew that the Empress had little chance of successfully leaving the capital, but it was the only chance for survival. Jin Li's face darkened. Build the sacrificial altar. At this moment, she had to be stubborn and firm. Kongqi felt disappointed in Empress Jin Li. Although the former emperor was also controlled, he always sought to break free and acted with the wisdom of a sage king. But Empress Jin Li. Kongqi's heart ached. Seeing Jin Li's stubbornness, he shed tears. I am useless, unable to alleviate the Empress's worries. I am willing to contribute 370 taels of silver to help build the sacrificial altar. 370 taels of silver was a lot for an ordinary person but insufficient to build the sacrificial altar. Duke Yu sighed deeply. The Empress intends to share the fate of the nation. I am willing to contribute 80,000 taels of silver and 800 craftsmen to build the sacrificial altar. This will be my last act for southern Qian. Back then, his daughter, Consort Shi, was pregnant, and the Empress was also expecting. Both were admiring flowers when a maid brought a bowl of apricot blossom soup, a simple broth. Consort Shi loved apricot blossom soup, so the Empress shared some with her. Who knew the soup was poisoned? Consort Shi miscarried and later died of sorrow. Had Consort Shi not drunk the soup, the Empress would have, and Jin Li would never have been born. Consort Shi and her unborn child had saved Jin Li's life. Although the public believed Consort Shi was poisoned by the Empress out of jealousy, Duke Yu knew it was Sima Ting's doing. So when Jin Li borrowed books from Duke Yu's residence, he violated etiquette, making her kneel at his daughter's spirit. For his daughter an unborn grandchild had died in Jin Li's place. Sometimes, he even considered Jin Li his granddaughter. Jin Li, unaware of this, was overjoyed by Duke Yu's words. Thank you, Duke Yu. Money was essential, but craftsmen were crucial. Duke Yu's provision of 800 craftsmen solved nearly all the problems. How could Jin Li not be pleased? Duke Yu looked at Empress Jin Li and said, Your Majesty, I do not know your purpose in doing this. But I must say, your life was exchanged by many sacrifices. Your life and death concern the safety of southern Qian. Please prioritize the nation's welfare. I will stay in the palace to build the sacrificial altar. He implied that he would be a distraction, building the sacrificial altar while Empress Jin Li secretly left. Empress Jin Li, even if slow, understood Duke Yu's implication and said, I understand. Enhance your reading experience by removing ads for as low as $1. Remove ads from $1. Watching as Lord Yu and Minister Kong left, Jin Li felt exhausted. She realized she wasn't suited to be an empress. If the situation in Nanqian were resolved, she wished to leave this place, go to the ancient Ji tree, and see Qi Yuan. If only it were possible. Your Majesty, Aunt Qin whispered in Jin Li's ear, is building the sacrificial altar the will of that person? Jin Li hesitated upon hearing this. Aunt Qin, you just need to follow my instructions. Aunt Qin stopped speaking, but a trace of worry flashed in her eyes. She had recognized the altar design on the blueprint, and so had Lord Yu. Aunt Qin withdrew and left the palace, spotting Lord Yu standing alone not far away, leaning against the gray-white railing. Seeing Aunt Qin, Lord Yu said aloud, Old Madam Qin, you must have recognized the content on that blueprint. Yes, Aunt Qin nodded, it's a sacrificial altar. It's said that in ancient times, the Yu continent was unified under a divine court that shook the world. Building a sacrificial altar could summon the divine army. But now, those are just legends. The divine court has long fallen. Where would a divine army come from? 20 years ago, when the city of Jingzhou in the Qing kingdom was besieged by monsters, the governor built a sacrificial altar from an ancient design, and what was the result? Lord Yu could only sigh at this. I wonder where Her Majesty got this blueprint. But, isn't relying on the sacrificial altar just as hopeless as hoping Her Majesty can leave the imperial city safely? Clearly, Lord Yu also didn't believe that the sacrificial altar could actually summon a divine army. Aunt Qin's face turned gloomy. We do our best and leave the rest to fate. A sacrificial altar? Ridiculous. When Sima Ting heard this news, his eyes filled with mockery. The Beast King of the Yao clan held a blueprint in his hands, smiling. Using the sword of the ancient divine court to cut modern demons. This Empress Jin Li is quite adorable. As a member of the Yao clan, he knew the divine court very well. In ancient times, when humans and the Yao clan competed, a top human expert, revered as a god, established the divine court and led 4 divisions. Building a sacrificial altar could summon the divine army. The divine court once drove their Yao clan to the icy wilderness. These events were well recorded in the ancestral grounds of the Yao clan. Let her build it. It's just a dying struggle, said the skinny emperor of the heavenly Lux sacred sect, indifferent. The Beast King of the Yao clan squinted his eyes. What matters now is forging the supreme royal staff. Everything else can wait. Right, don't forget to help Ding Tian keep an eye on Empress Jin Li. Don't let her escape, the skinny emperor reminded. Sima Ting quickly assured, rest assured, the palace is surrounded. Empress Jin Li cannot escape. Indeed, outside the city are 7 of our Yao clan's emperors. She cannot escape, the Yao Beast King said confidently. This time, the Yao clan had deployed considerable forces to forge the supreme royal artifact. With 7 emperors and some kings, they could refine the entire imperial city. Unfortunately, the officials who followed Sima Ting, thinking they could rightfully seize the throne, did not realize they and the city's civilians were just fish on the chopping board for the Yao clan. So tired. Qi Yuan woke up feeling utterly exhausted. Although he had suppressed the ugly clothes monster emperor in battle without injury, the toll on his spirit was immense. With a wave of his hand, a water mirror appeared before him. Qi Yuan saw his pale face in the mirror, indicating significant depletion. It feels like my body is drained. I really want a Shenbao kidney treasure drink. If nothing else, maybe some 6-flavor Romania pills. Despite the massive in-game expenditure, Qi Yuan's gains were substantial, especially after reaching level 90. This growth also reflected in reality, his cultivation had improved noticeably. Previously, without using his knife, his battle-honed skills and abilities from the game could already match the foundation establishment level. Now, with his cultivation increased, Qi Yuan could suppress ordinary foundation establishment cultivators using only his own power, without relying on skills or techniques. This was a tremendous improvement. Unfortunately, my spirit is still too weak. Is it because my soul is too frail? Qi Yuan pondered. However, Qi refining cultivators couldn't sense their souls. This ability came at the foundation establishment stage. When I achieve foundation establishment, I must learn some techniques to strengthen my soul. That way, I can stay in the game longer. With this thought, Qi Yuan took out books from his storage bag. Despite his fatigue, he remained diligent. But as soon as he started reading, His head throbbed, a consequence of his all-night gaming. Reading isn't an option. I need to rest and get a massage, Qi Yuan decided, knowing he needed a proper break to avoid burnout. Qi Yuan slowly left the thatched hut, spotting Zhang Lingsu flipping through some materials. She wore an ice blue dress, her presence calming yet distant. Seeing Qi Yuan, she frowned. Senior brother, did something go wrong with your cultivation? No, just tired from staying up late gaming. I need a massage to recover. Junior sister, would you like to give me a massage? I'll pay you 3 spirit stones. Go away. Zhang Lingsu's budding concern was immediately squashed by Qi Yuan's flippant remark. Qi Yuan chuckled, leisurely descending the mountain. Fortunately, she didn't agree, otherwise, he'd waste 3 spirit stones. Proper massages in town didn't even cost spirit stones. If it weren't for her being wealthy, he wouldn't have offered so many. As he walked away, Zhang Lingsu felt a twinge of guilt. Was she too harsh earlier? After a genuine massage in town, Qi Yuan felt slightly better. He also bought a delicious spirit stew for 1 spirit stone. A day of relaxation later, Qi Yuan felt somewhat restored. My soul is still too weak. Unfortunately, soul-related techniques and herbs are extremely rare. In the vast library of the Black Mountain sect, Qi Yuan had found no soul-related techniques. Such herbs were even scarcer. Anything related to the soul was highly valuable, often monopolized by nascent soul stage cultivators who needed them to advance to the Zifu stage. Even as a qi refining cultivator, or even at foundation establishment or core formation stages, obtaining such resources was nearly impossible. But it's not a big deal. Once I achieve foundation establishment, I'll consider soul-enhancing methods. Qi Yuan had gained the ability to see hidden information after entering the game and reaching qi refining. Who knew what new abilities might come with foundation establishment? He wasn't worried. Returning to Qi's Peak, Qi Yuan prepared to rest and recover before diving back into the game. As he passed the large tree on the mountainside, he paused again, looking down. This is an unusual little grass. It smells the scent of the moon. Qi Yuan looked up at the sky. The scent of the moon? What is that? Gazing back at the grass, he mused, will you recognize the scent of Qi Yuan if I see you tomorrow? He wanted to find someone healthy to wake this unusual little grass and ask how it turned extraordinary. He also wanted to be extraordinary. Enhance your reading experience by removing ads for as low as $1. Remove ads from $1. The night was pitch black. Within the imperial city, Aunt Qin was covered in blood. The horror in her eyes had not yet dissipated, but she was frantically running towards the inner city. The 2 auras behind her did not pursue but instead went into hiding. However, the terror lingering on Aunt Qin had not faded. She hurried into the palace. Aunt Qin, what happened to you? Seeing Aunt Qin covered in blood, Jin Li was horrified. Nearby, Duke Yu and the great scholar Kong Qi, who were overseeing the construction of the sacrificial altar, also quickly approached, clearly noticing Aunt Qin's dire state. Upon seeing Aunt Qin's severe injuries, both men's eyes revealed concern and despair. In recent days, they had not only been building the sacrificial altar but also secretly plotting with Aunt Qin to see if they could smuggle Empress Jin Li out of the imperial city. Tonight, Aunt Qin had sneaked out of the city to test the waters. Unexpectedly, Aunt Qin returned gravely injured. Cough, cough, Aunt Qin coughed, spitting out a mouthful of bloody foam mixed with pieces of shattered organs. Seeing this, Jin Li hurriedly fed Aunt Qin the healing medicine brought by the flower fairy. After taking the medicine, Aunt Qin's complexion improved slightly. Aunt Qin, are you feeling better? Jin Li was extremely worried. I'm better, thank you for your concern, Your Majesty. Aunt Qin looked at the crowd and said heavily, just now, when I tried to leave the city, I was intercepted by 2 emperor-level beings. What, 2 of them? If it were only 2, they wouldn't have injured me so severely. There were also several others lurking in the shadows. Most importantly, they weren't human, they were demons. A massive formation has been set up outside the imperial city. Aunt Qin spoke rapidly. Hearing this, everyone's faces changed dramatically. The great scholar Kong Qi's beard trembled. Demons. A formation. Outside the formation, there was a blood-red sky with 3,000 white flags, indicating it is likely the soul entrapment formation. As Aunt Qin spoke, everyone present felt weak at the knees. The soul entrapment formation was notoriously infamous. 50 years ago, a small country bordering the demon beast territory was invaded by demons, who set up the soul entrapment formation, brutally killing hundreds of thousands of people. Because of that incident, the human nations of the Moonwatch continent were enraged, forming an allied army to fight the demons. As a result, both sides suffered heavy losses. It was also due to that conflict that the royal authority of the Nanshin kingdom began to decline gradually. Several major human nations underwent significant changes. Now hearing Anshin say that there was a soul entrapment formation outside the imperial city, how could they not be terrified? Are you sure you didn't see wrong? Duke Yu asked Anshin, his voice heavy. Everyone else also looked at Anshin anxiously. Anshin said, I did not see wrong, it is indeed the soul entrapment formation. Upon hearing this, Kong Chi fell to the ground in despair, then suddenly stood up. I must ask, what exactly does Sima Ting want? Jin Li, hearing this news, also felt a twinge of fear. She had also thought that Sima Ting merely wanted to usurp the throne and take her life and those of her supporters. Now it seemed that Sima Ting harbored malicious intentions to destroy the entire Nanshin kingdom. But how could so many demons, even Emperor level 1s, enter Nanshin? Didn't the Tianyan sacred sect know about this? Jin Li felt a chill. She realized this situation was far more complex than she had imagined. However, looking at the sacrificial altar nearing completion, her eyes showed a fierce determination. Let's set this aside for now. We must first complete the sacrificial altar. Her voice was firm and unquestionable. The previously despondent Kong Chi also stood up, as you command. However, his spirit was completely gone. Jin Li returned to her chamber, standing alone in her bedroom, looking through the window at the ancient Kizakura tree in the sky, tightly gripping her Linglong jade seal. Qi Yuan, what would you do in this situation? At the Prime Minister's residence. Sima Ting bowed his head, looking extremely obsequious. Honored sirs, if that person is not eliminated, he might reveal the formation, disrupting your grand plan. The slender emperor of the Tianyan sacred sect smiled without speaking. The demon emperor was indifferent. The formation is already set. Let it be revealed if it must. Chaos in the city will benefit the progress of refining the bloodless imperial staff. But, if word spreads, there might be unrest among the city's soldiers. Sima Ting was still worried. Can't you, Sima Ting, control your own soldiers? The demon emperor mocked. Cold sweat broke out on Sima Ting's forehead. If the matter is exposed, I will find an excuse to appease the military. Now, the entire imperial city was under his control, so calming the troops would not be difficult. I heard that the day after tomorrow at noon, your empress will ascend the sacrificial altar to worship the heavens. The demon emperor shifted the topic. Yes, Sima Ting replied. Good, I have nothing else to do, I will go watch. See if my future wine vessel is beautiful enough. The demon emperor laughed. I will make the arrangements. Sima Ting had not planned to go, but since the demon emperor wanted to, he would bring all the civil and military officials. Okay, the demon emperor nodded in satisfaction, his eyes showing a deep and inscrutable look. His purpose in watching the sacrificial ceremony was not merely to see his future wine vessel. On that day, with all the civil and military officials gathered, he planned a massacre. With bloodshed, panic, fear, and desire, the bloodless imperial staff would be forged with even greater terror. Of course, he did not share these thoughts with Sima Ting. The sacrificial altar was more than 2 zhang tall, with a pavilion on top, each of its 4 corners adorned with a small beast sculpture. The entire altar exuded an aura of ancient simplicity and rough primitiveness. From afar, it looked desolate and heavy. Due to its simplicity, the construction of the sacrificial altar did not take long. Sima Ting sat in his seat, the demon emperor lounging beside him, completely without manners. Sima Ryu's hair was unbound, looking even more wild. Nearby, a group of civil and military officials whispered among themselves. Some looked at Sima Ting with doubt, others glanced at the demon emperor thoughtfully. It was clear that Aunt Chin had already spread the word about the formation. However, most people thought it was merely a ploy by Empress Jin Li to sow discord. Moreover, without emperor-level power, they could not detect the soul entrapment formation. Her Majesty the Empress has arrived. With a cry, Empress Jin Li appeared in everyone's sight. She was dressed in a golden, wide-sleeved robe with phoenix birds embroidered in gold on the sleeves. Around her neck was a white jade necklace adorned with golden flowers. Her waist was cinched with a Linglong jade seal, and she wore a pearl phoenix crown on her head. At this moment, she exuded the grace and dignity befitting an empress. Unfortunately, apart from the Minister of Rights and a few others, no one saluted her. At that time, the army had entered the imperial city, and Sima Ting's faction no longer bothered to keep up appearances. Seeing this, Sima Ryu was pleased. He leaned towards Sima Ting and said loudly, "Father, if you had done this earlier, I would be the crown prince by now." Many civil and military officials heard this and smiled. Jin Li heard it but remained silent. The auspicious time has arrived, let the sacrificial ceremony begin. Kong Qi straightened his back, his voice heavy, as if this ceremony would witness the end of a dynasty. Enhance your reading experience by removing ads for as low as $1. Remove ads from $1. As Kong Qi chanted, Jin Li slowly ascended the sacrificial platform. This was supposed to be a national sacrifice, but only the Minister of Rites was present to perform the ceremony. How pathetic. Qin Yi and Duke Yu stood below the platform, looking at Jin Li on the stage with a deep sense of helplessness in their eyes. Jin Li ascended the altar, praying for the descent of the Divine Court's army, but it was nothing more than an illusion, a mirage. They were utterly powerless to change the situation. Meanwhile, some of the civil and military officials besides Sima Ting watched Jin Li with a look of amusement. Especially those who knew the origin of the sacrificial platform, they mocked her. Some even felt a pang of sorrow. The Empress was cornered, with no way out. The beautiful but doomed Empress Jin Li was destined to perish with the empire. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Empress Jin Li slowly ascended the altar. This time, her steps were steady. Inside her, emotions swirled. Foremost was her worry for Qi Yuan. It had been 4 days since Qi Yuan last sent any message. But now, with the grave situation at hand, worrying was useless. She cast aside other emotions, following Qi Yuan's steps for the ritual. Holding a long jade tablet, she appeared devout. As she climbed 2/3 of the steps, Kong Qi prostrated himself, curling up, tears streaming down his old face. This was the most humiliating ceremony he had ever presided over. Even more so than the Empress's enthronement. And this time, it was likely his last ceremony, marking the end of the Nengan kingdom. He, along with the Empress, would be mere footnotes in history, leaving no trace. Sima Ryu sat among the officials, legs spread, showing no decorum. He pointed at the sacrificial platform. "What do you think, will Her Majesty become a legend if she leaps off the platform?" The last Empress of the Empire, leaping from the altar, would indeed be legendary. The officials remained silent, no one answering him. The Demon Emperor beside him grinned, revealing sharp, white teeth. "I hope she doesn't land headfirst, or my exquisite drinking vessel will shatter." He spoke, then continued drinking in his peculiar way, biting the cup and swallowing it. This strange act drew the attention of many. Watching the Demon Emperor swallow the cup, Sima Ryu glanced at Empress Jin Li's elegantly coiffed head, a twinge of fear creeping in. He knew this man was extraordinary, possibly from the Tianyan sect, prompting him to say, "You have peculiar taste, truly an elegant man." The Demon Emperor poured Sima Ryu a drink, and the two drank together. As for the Empress on the sacrificial platform, who cared? Empress Jin Li reached the top. Standing on the Tujong high altar, she raised the jade tablet with her left hand, tossing a jade ring into the stone brazier with her right. The ring shattered into pieces. Her voice, clear as a mountain spring, resounded with authority. "O gods, take pity on my thoughts, accept my jade tablet." Her voice rose, and the flames danced. "My heart is restless, seeking solace from the heavens. O mighty heavens, look down upon me." The invocation was brief, part of it provided by Kong Qi. The most crucial part of the ritual was given by Qi Yuan. It was very short, just 2 lines. Jin Li earnestly recited the first line. The last line required no recitation, only a thought. By the decree of the Lord of the Clothing Department, Qi Yuan, the forbidden army of the Clothing Department, heed the call. As these words were uttered, the sun remained the same. The civil and military officials below remained indifferent, none taking the ceremony seriously. Duke Yu, having anticipated this, saw his last glimmer of hope vanish. Qin Yi, recalling the experiences in Zan Yuan's realm, still harbored a faint hope. The sacrificial platform couldn't summon the legendary Forbidden Army, but if the mysterious, powerful Qi Yuan, comparable to a supreme emperor, appeared. Though he couldn't contend with the combined might of the demon emperors or break the array outside, he could at least take Empress Jin Li away. That would be the best outcome. Jin Li was never meant to be an empress, having been forced into the role. Let the Nengan kingdom fall, but let the empress survive. Kong Qi, lying prostrate, felt his eyes burn, his face expressionless. At this moment, Jin Li felt a connection to something ethereal. She sensed that, with a mere thought, the forbidden army of the clothing department would appear, just as Qi Yuan had said. She had almost unconditional faith in Qi Yuan. She didn't immediately recite the final line, but looked down at the civil and military officials below the altar. Her voice, cold and angry, "Sima Ting, I ask you, is there a soul-burying banner array outside the imperial city? Are you colluding with the demons, plotting to trap all Nengan citizens in eternal damnation?" Despite her limited cultivation, her voice rang like spring thunder, reaching everyone. Many officials were moved, but many more saw it as her last desperate struggle. Some glanced secretly at Sima Ting, awaiting his response. Sima Ting stood, his tall stature making him stand out. Facing Jin Li's questioning, he remained calm. "Your Majesty, why do you sow discord? Do you think such petty tricks can alter the course of events? As an emperor, you must act openly and righteously, winning with integrity. Deception and trickery are not the way of an emperor. Your Majesty, raised by women, indecisive and lacking wisdom, you are unfit to rule. I ask again, is there an array outside the city?" Jin Li repeated. The officials, hearing Sima Ting's response, felt reassured. Nengan was under the Prime Minister's control. Why would he bury his own foundation with the demons? Sima Ryu, unable to hold back, stood and jeered, "Empress Jin Li, isn't this too boring? I was hoping to see you summon the divine army with the sacrificial platform and slay us all." His words drew laughter from the crowd. No one took the Empress seriously. Nengan's throne had belonged to the Sima family for 20 years. Jin Li remained unmoved, her voice firm, "Is there an array outside the city?" Her threefold questioning made many officials think she was at her wit's end. Some secretly mocked, others felt pity for the Empress's tragic fate. At this moment, the Demon Emperor, who had been drinking all along, unexpectedly spoke, "Beautiful Jin Li, you're right. There's indeed a soul-burying banner array outside the city." His words stunned the crowd. "Prime Minister, who is this man? Is the soul-burying banner array real?" The officials were shocked, then terrified. The Demon Emperor's face twisted with a cruel smile. "Sima Ting, am I telling the truth?" Sima Ting, unperturbed, replied, "Yes." The officials were now truly frightened, the assembly descending into chaos. The Demon Emperor, eyes gleaming with malice, shouted, "Useless scum." With a wave of his hand, the power of an emperor-level being surged, killing dozens of officials. His eyes gleamed with cruelty. More chaos, more bloodshed. He struck again, killing hundreds more from Sima Ting's faction. Now, most officials lay in pools of blood, utterly miserable. Watching the chaos, the Demon Emperor smiled in satisfaction. The more chaotic and bloody the capital, the stronger the bloodless emperor's staff would become. After a massacre, he turned his gaze to Qin Yi, guarding the sacrificial platform, a look of contempt in his eyes. At her peak, Qin Yi wasn't his match, let alone now, wounded as she was. "My drinking vessel, here I come." The Demon Emperor's body swelled, growing 3 jong tall, towering over the platform. Facing an emperor-level foe, he showed respect. A fierce beast, mocking humanity. Qin Yi, seeing this, leapt into the air, her slender figure blocking the platform. At this moment, she heard Empress Jin Li's solemn and dignified chant. "Soldiers, heed the call, kill." With this chant, an unexpected event unfolded. Above the platform, the clear sky suddenly filled with dark clouds. Thick clouds gathered, casting the capital into darkness. A chilling, mysterious, and profound aura spread. Everyone was terrified, hearing the sound of thousands of horses and the awakening of gods. "What's happening?" The Demon Emperor was shocked for the first time. The other Demon Emperors outside the city were equally stunned. A cold voice echoed from the sky. "By the decree of the Lord of the Clothing Department, Qi Yuan. Summoned by Empress Jin Li of Nengan. The Divine Court's 4 departments, the forbidden army of the Clothing Department, purge the traitors." A ray of bright sunlight pierced the thick clouds. The sky brightened, then darkened again. Looking up, near the sacrificial platform, appeared thousands of soldiers. Clad in black armor, wielding golden weapons, they stood in the air. They surrounded Empress Jin Li, led by 10 terrifyingly powerful black-armored warriors. Silent, but exuding immense pressure. They seemed to have marched through history, demons from the underworld. They did not look at the people below, as if they disdained to look, but everyone felt the unbearable pressure. At this moment, the clothing department's imperial guards formed a military formation, holding long golden spears, announcing their arrival to the world. Duke Yu widened his eyes when he saw this scene. The 4 departments of the Divine Court. The Imperial Guards of the Clothing Department are really here. The great sage Kong Qi, who was crawling on the ground, was also completely stunned and cried with joy, "God bless Nan Kingdom, God bless my Empress." Auntie Qin was also shocked. It's all true, the Lord of the Clothing Department. Qi Yuan. After so many thousands of years, is there still the Divine Court in the world, is there still the Clothing Department? Yes. At this time, the cold and silent Imperial Guards of the Clothing Department finally moved. An Imperial Guard in red armor flew silently in front of Queen Jinli, and announced with a mechanical voice. "My lord brought 2 words. The master said that he wanted to say a rustic love word. With him here, no one in the world can touch you." The master also said. Hearing these 2 words, Jinli's eyes flashed with determination. She looked up at the ancient Chi Chun wood in the center of the world, and her eyes were like stars. Enhance your reading experience by removing ads for as low as $1. Remove ads from $1. An indescribable emotion spread as Jinli couldn't help but ask, "How is he?" The red armored figure seemed to have anticipated this question, the master as well. After saying this, the red armored figure seemed to lose all its spiritual essence and ceased speaking. Jinli felt at ease. She knew this was a forbidden army of the Clothing Department, resurrected from death. They were a battle-hardened elite force that had already fallen in battle. She looked at the Demon Emperor. At this moment, the Demon Emperor also looked at her in astonishment. Impossible, absolutely impossible. The 4 departments of the Divine Court were long destroyed in the mists of history. How can there be a forbidden army of the Clothing Department in this world? You are nothing but projections, heart demons. Disturbing my supreme heart, you must die. The Demon Emperor roared, seemingly about to charge towards the forbidden army of the Clothing Department, intending to shatter those shadows with a punch. However, something astonishing happened. He took a step forward but immediately retreated, flying out of the city. At this moment, one of the 10 black-armored commanders within the Forbidden Army, carrying a long bow, drew it partially and released an arrow. Whoosh! The long arrow made a sonic boom, leaving a long trail across the sky. The swift arrow, like a bolt of lightning, pierced the Demon Emperor's body. The Demon Emperor looked back in disbelief. Supreme Emperor. With a bang, the arrow exploded, and his body was blown apart. A terrifying giant beast, the Demon Emperor, was easily shot to death by a single arrow, then exploded. It was as if a balloon had been popped by an arrow. This scene shocked the civil and military officials present. Even Sima Ting was utterly shaken. The thin emperor of the Tianyan sect beside him trembled, his eyes filled with disbelief. A powerful figure, infinitely close to a supreme emperor, ranking among the top 10 in the demon race, was killed by a single arrow. He looked at the forbidden army of the Clothing Department in the sky, feeling no resistance in his heart. The 10 leaders, each with an aura as deep as the ocean. They were supreme emperors, and not just ordinary supreme emperors. A forbidden army of 10,000 led by 10 supreme emperors and nearly 100 emperors. What a concept! None of the soldiers were ordinary people. The lowest rank was innate, and there were no postnatal cultivators. Who could stand against such a forbidden army? He wanted to find a hole to hide in and secretly escape back to the Tianyan sect. At this moment, Sima Ting suddenly laughed maniacally. Why? Damn heavens, why do you keep toying with me? He suddenly pointed at the thin emperor of the Tianyan sect. He is from the Tianyan sect, and all this was their plot. At this point, Sima Ting seemed to accept his fate. On the sacrificial platform, Jin Li, though she had her suspicions, was still moved and disappointed upon hearing this. The human sacred land, the Tianyan sect, had ultimately fallen. She looked at the forbidden army of the Clothing Department and thought of Qi Yuan, still in the forbidden area. She made a decision in her heart. She would use the forbidden army to quickly sweep away the predicament, then, go to the ancient Kichun tree to see that man. The ancient Kichun tree, the divine tree of the Moonwatch continent. It is said that if lovers meet under the ancient Kichun tree, they will receive the blessings of the divine tree. Kill. Jin Li's face turned cold. She would once again become the Empress of Nangan. She was raised with the worship of the people, so she should do something for this country. With Jin Li's command, the silent forbidden army advanced, and one of the commanders, holding a long spear, pinned the thin emperor to the ground with a single thrust. Retrieving the spear returned, and the person was annihilated. Sima Ting was also pinned to death with a single thrust. The civil and military officials, witnessing this scene, dared not run. They only trembled or knelt on the ground, begging for Empress Jinli's forgiveness. Jinli looked at the terrified officials and the ones lying in pools of blood, her eyes showing no pity. The soul-burying banner array outside the city and the remaining demon emperors were her main concerns. Gentlemen, kill the enemy. Jinli's face was stern. At this moment, the grievances suppressed for 17 years seemed to pour out. Sadly, she was just one person away from perfection. Little wedding. Qi Yuan stood in the space, gently patting the little wedding garment. At this moment, the little wedding garment clung to his body like an octopus. The little wedding garment was drowsy. Qi Yuan looked at the little wedding garment, lost in thought. Too bad you don't have a face. Qi Yuan thought. He didn't disturb the little wedding garment. Because he found that the little wedding garment seemed to be like him, greatly exhausted and not yet recovered. This was the first time he had seen the little wedding garment in this state. Qi Yuan's expression was complex. It seemed that he couldn't be too combative in the future. Qi Yuan decided that he should be more cautious in the future. At this moment, the little wedding garment, who had been asleep, suddenly moved. If it had eyes, Qi Yuan would have noticed its long eyelashes fluttering before opening its eyes. Seeing the little wedding garment awake, Qi Yuan smiled gently, "You're in trouble. After leaving the clothing department, you probably won't see your kin for a while." There were many other wedding garment spirits in the clothing department. The little wedding garment continued to cling to Qi Yuan, like a clingy puppy. "I wonder if you'll have trouble adjusting. The place we're going next is called, the Five Elements Forbidden Land. I wonder if there are many monsters in the Five Elements Forbidden Land." If there were many monsters in the Five Elements Forbidden Land, Qi Yuan decided to rely less on the little wedding garment and fight on his own. Even without the little wedding garment, didn't he still conquer the clothing department forbidden area? It was originally clumsy, knocking things over when it walked, and even tripping over nothing. Moreover, its body was soft and delicate. Qi Yuan feared it couldn't handle the strain of frequent merging. Of course, Qi Yuan was reminded of a certain TV show's Siblings, where the brother said he could defeat the enemy without his sister's sword, but the sister sacrificed her sword, and the brother died in battle. Naturally, Qi Yuan did not favor such an ending. Five Elements Forbidden Land, here I come. Qi Yuan held the little wedding garment's cold hand, and they finally stepped into the Five Elements Forbidden Land. Unlike the Xuanyuan Forbidden Area and the Clothing Department Forbidden Area, it was vastly different. Looking around, Qi Yuan saw no flowers, trees, or other monsters in the Five Elements Forbidden Land. The environment was peculiar. One side was lava, burning with blazing flames, another side was ice, spouting cold springs, another side was a gold mine, with specks of gold sand, some of which were in liquid form, flowing. The Five Elements Forbidden Land, a place where the five elements gather. He tightly held the little wedding garment's hand as they walked into the Five Elements Forbidden Land. After all, given the little wedding garment's clumsy and naive nature, if it walked by itself and fell into the fire, burning its clothes and exposing itself, what then? Of course, what if it got hurt? At this moment, an old voice sounded in Qi Yuan's ear. "Lord of the Clothing Department, I have been waiting for you for a long time. Enhance your reading experience by removing ads for as low as $1. Remove ads from $1. Qi Yuan looked towards the source of the voice and felt a sharp sensation. When he looked closely, he saw an amiable old man. However, this old man gave Qi Yuan a strange feeling. It seemed as if he wasn't a living person. Suddenly, a trace of vigilance flashed in his eyes. He protected Xiaojia behind him and held his long sword towards the old man. He spoke, "You are a demonic entity." Qi Yuan saw that the inside of the old man's body was empty. The entire person was just a human skin. The old man still maintained a kindly smile. "You could say I am a demonic entity, but also not." Qi Yuan carefully examined the old man again. He sensed a strong metallic aura from the old man. A guess formed in his mind. The old man said, "The name I had in life has long been forgotten. After being devoured by extraterritorial demons, I died, leaving only this human skin behind. Upon entering the Five Elements Forbidden Land, I gained a new lease on life. Now, I am called Jin Zhu. I am neither human nor non-human, neither alive nor dead." Qi Yuan looked at Jin Zhu and understood. Jin Zhu was now just a vessel for metal attributes. He didn't even have a soul. Only a persistent will remained. Thus, he was as good as dead. "What do you want from me?" Qi Yuan asked, his vigilance unrelenting. Lord Tong of the Yin-Yang Forbidden Land must have invited the master of the clothing department to the Demon Extermination Assembly 300 years later. Since we all are beings of the Moonwatch continent, we should unite against the extraterritorial demons. Otherwise, we might end up like my former self, dead, leaving only a human skin. Jin Zhu sighed. Qi Yuan looked at Jin Zhu. Despite being just a human skin, he felt more comfortable with him than with the elders and disciples of the Black Mountain sect. I must exterminate the extraterritorial demons. Qi Yuan's attitude was firm. The big boss must be dealt with. His heavenly foundation was tied to the big boss. Upon hearing this, Jin Zhu's amiable expression deepened. Now that the master of the clothing department has come to the Five Elements Forbidden Land, we are willing to open the Five Elements training grounds. In the Five Elements training grounds, there are energies of the Five Elements that can strengthen oneself and enhance cultivation. In our Five Elements Forbidden Land, many young prodigies are cultivating. Over thousands of years, new powerful beings have emerged, some even reaching the divine realm. With 300 years until the Demon Extermination Assembly, the master of the clothing department could train in the Five Elements training grounds for 100 years and possibly make significant progress. Are there monsters inside? Qi Yuan asked. Jin Zhu was momentarily stunned but replied, yes. No problem. If there were monsters, he could level up. Jin Zhu's face maintained a constant smile. Master of the clothing department, please follow me. Qi Yuan did not move and instead looked at Jin Zhu. I have another purpose for coming to the Five Elements Forbidden Land. The Five Elements Forbidden Land was different from the Clothing Department Forbidden Area and the Xuanyuan Forbidden Area. In other forbidden areas, he could gain control by defeating monsters. Of course, the Clothing Department Forbidden Area was an exception as it required marrying Xiaojia. The Five Elements Forbidden Land seemed to have many dormant powerful beings, unlike the clothing monsters. He couldn't just kill them all, and it seemed killing them wouldn't yield experience points. How to gain control? Master of the clothing department, please speak. Jin Zhu's attitude was amiable. I want to fully control the Five Elements Forbidden Land. Is there a way? Qi Yuan asked Jin Zhu. Hearing this, Jin Zhu was taken aback. Obviously, this purpose was unexpected. He hadn't responded yet. A displeased voice came from behind. It was a green-clad woman, looking cute and short but fierce like a girl who aced her exams. She looked angry. How dare you, master of the clothing department, try to take control of our Five Elements Forbidden Land? Do you know what that means? I suspect you're a spy sent by the extraterritorial demons, otherwise why would you suddenly appear? If it weren't for Jin Zhu being there, this green-clad woman would have probably jumped up and slapped Qi Yuan's head. Jin Zhu looked at the girl, smiling indulgently. Xiao Lu, don't be rude to our guest. Then he turned to Qi Yuan. Master of the clothing department, gaining control of the Five Elements Forbidden Land is indeed difficult. It depends on your talent. If you, master of the clothing department, exhibit unparalleled talent in the Five Elements training grounds, what harm is there in you controlling the Five Elements Forbidden Land? Qi Yuan looked past Jin Zhu, seemingly seeing through the Five Elements Forbidden Land. He saw many coffins and sensed many dormant auras. Each one was above level 90. Among them, some surpassed the ugly clothing emperor, likely above level 95. In the Five Elements Forbidden Land, you don't seem to be the strongest. Can you decide to give me control? Of course I can decide. Jin Zhu said confidently. Good, it's a deal. Qi Yuan responded, it seems it won't be long before I clear the Five Elements Forbidden Land. The green-clad woman looked at Qi Yuan with dissatisfaction and turned to Jin Zhu, communicating telepathically. Grandpa Jin Zhu, how can you make such a promise with him? Jin Zhu smiled without speaking. Led by Jin Zhu, the group walked deeper into the Forbidden Land. Along the way, Qi Yuan kept surveying his surroundings. The Five Elements Forbidden Land indeed had no other monsters, but there were many natural and geographical disasters, extremely dangerous. Creatures around level 50 or 60 entering rashly would likely die. After about a quarter of an hour, Jin Zhu led the group to a valley. In the valley, there were over 70 coffins. Qi Yuan knew that many powerful beings were dormant in these coffins. Jin Zhu said, most of the powerful beings of the Moonwatch continent are gathered in the Five Elements Forbidden Land and the Yin-Yang Forbidden Land. They are in these coffins, both to rest and to cultivate. When the Demon Extermination Assembly begins, they will emerge from the coffins. By then, Master of the Clothing Department, you will join them in exterminating the extraterritorial demons. Upon hearing this, Qi Yuan remained silent. 300 years, he couldn't wait that long. How old was he now? In 300 years, even a dynasty could be wiped out. Jin Zhu continued talking to himself, then he walked to a coffin and knocked on it lightly. There was no response from the coffin. Seeing this, he knocked harder a few more times. Still, there was no response. Jin Zhu looked puzzled. At this moment, the adjacent coffin lid suddenly lifted, and a rough-looking man with a wild demeanor sat up. Jin Zhu, has your memory gone with your former self? You even knocked on the wrong coffin. Seeing the rough man, Jin Zhu's face showed a trace of embarrassment. An accident. The rough man then looked at Qi Yuan, his eyes seemingly scrutinizing. Not bad, even with the help of the wedding dress empress, you're a good seedling. It was worth using my essence to open the 5 elements training grounds for you. I hope in 300 years, you can become a major power. Enhance your reading experience by removing ads for as low as $1. Remove ads from $1. After the rough man finished speaking, he suddenly spat out a thick phlegm from his mouth. However, the phlegm transformed into a ball of 5-colored gas. Jin Zhu caught the gas, gave some instructions to Xiao Lu, and then led Qi Yuan further in. Moments later, all the coffin lids in the area suddenly lifted. One by one, humanoid beings sat up, each exuding a terrifying aura. The rough man spoke with a hint of amazement in his voice. Unexpectedly, he has already stepped into the divine realm. Truly a genius, second only to you. Everyone looked at you. In the 5 elements forbidden land, there were only 2 peak divine realm experts. In the world today, there were only 3 peak divine realm experts. You, clad in a white robe covered in feathers, had an extremely handsome appearance, resembling a stunningly beautiful female immortal. Given a few more millennia, he might become a giant in the divine realm. What a pity, what a pity. Yu's voice was extremely soft, leaning towards the feminine side. If he gains something in the 5 elements training ground within 300 years, coupled with the support of the wedding dress empress, he might be able to wield the power of a giant in the divine realm. A giant in the divine realm was already the strongest combat power below the peak of the divine realm, extremely rare. However, when this person mentioned the wedding dress empress, many people present had flickering eyes, as if recalling something. In the past, the heavenly god could suppress an era, largely due to the wedding dress empress. If they obtained the wedding dress empress, the power they could wield would be at least that of a giant, and they might even wield the power of a peak divine realm expert. If Yu or Long Pan obtained her, they might even surpass the power of the heavenly god. Facing the extraterritorial demons, their chances would improve. However, they also understood that the wedding dress empress was not easy to obtain. Yu gently admonished, no internal strife. The soft voice carried a hint of warning. Everyone knew Yu's character. The fewer words, the more serious the matter. Everyone fell silent, hiding their inner thoughts. At this moment, the green-clad girl couldn't help but speak. That master of the clothing department, his intentions are sinister. He wants the 5 elements forbidden land. What? The rough man was surprised upon hearing this. The green-clad girl quickly recounted what had happened to everyone present. After hearing it, their expressions varied. He wants to fully control the 5 elements forbidden land. His ambition is not small. That kid, could he be a traitor sent by the extraterritorial demons? If the 5 elements forbidden land falls into the hands of an outsider, we might be wiped out by the extraterritorial demons before the demon extermination assembly in 300 years. You all are overthinking it. With the 5 ancestors here, what's there to fear? Do you really think that kid's talent is stronger than the heavenly gods and could gain the approval of the 5 ancestors? In the 5 elements forbidden land, there were Jin Zhu, Mu Zhu, Shui Zhu, Huo Zhu, and Tu Zhu. These 5 ancestors were the key to controlling the 5 elements forbidden land. It was because of them that the 5 elements forbidden land hadn't been invaded by the extraterritorial demons like the clothing department forbidden area. After some discussion, everyone found the idea somewhat ridiculous and not to be taken seriously. The rough man sorted out his thoughts and said to the green-clad girl, Xiao Lu, I know you're concerned about Jin Zhu, but there's no need to worry. Even if that kid is extraordinarily talented, he can't truly control the 5 elements forbidden land. Of course, he had another thought. Even if the master of the clothing department gained control of the 5 elements forbidden land and had terrifying talent, they would still be lacking in confidence when facing the extraterritorial demons. They lacked not only talent but also the accumulation of time and the disparity between worlds. Upon hearing this, Xiaolu's eyes lit up. Right, that guy was probably just bragging. Even if the heavenly god returned, he couldn't claim control of the 5 elements forbidden land from the 5 ancestors. It wasn't about strength, it was about talent. Following Jin Zhu, Qi Yuan arrived near the 5 elements training ground. Jin Zhu said, in the 5 elements training ground, there are 5 essences: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. These 5 essences contain the energy of the 5 elements, which is beneficial for our cultivation. Slaying the required essences can be used to comprehend the divine realm and enhance cultivation. Each divine realm or heavenly realm expert usually had a single attribute. The cultivation methods they practiced might align with 1 or 2 of the 5 elements. This way, their cultivation would be faster. It's like how pure spiritual roots in cultivators allow for faster cultivation compared to mixed spiritual roots. If someone cultivated the path of the 5 elements, their progress would be significantly delayed. Therefore, those who reached the divine realm mostly cultivated single attributes, with a few exceptions who cultivated multiple attributes. The heavenly god was a rare exception, primarily cultivating metal with the other 4 elements as support. What level of achievement do I need to control the 5 elements forbidden land? Qi Yuan asked his most pressing question. The 5 elements forbidden land has 5 ancestors. If you achieve mastery in the metal element, you will gain my approval. Master the water element to gain Shuizu's approval. If you master all 5 elements, you will become the lord of the forbidden land. Jin Zhu said. This condition was extremely difficult. Mastering the metal element alone would take even the heavenly god several centuries. Mastering all 5 elements, by then, the demon extermination assembly would be over. Moreover, not all experts could adapt to the other elements. Even if they slay the essences, they might not gain the power of the 5 elements. I understand. Qi Yuan was excited. Isn't this just like collecting fragments in a game? Collect all 5 fragments, then exchange them to become the lord of the forbidden land. After saying this, he held Xiao Jia's hand, glanced at Jin Zhu, and said, I'm going. Jin Zhu watched Qi Yuan enter, chuckling, and reminded him, in the 5 elements training ground, there are also some young prodigies from the 5 elements forbidden land. If you encounter them, take care of each other. Okay, Qi Yuan replied, and his figure disappeared. At this moment, a water figure appeared, transforming into a woman. It was Shuizu. Jin Zhu shook his head and then said, I hope he can. If so, we will have another peak divine realm expert during the demon extermination assembly. Our chances will be better. Shuizu said, it's just a slightly better chance, sigh. HMPH, are you all hoping he becomes the lord of the forbidden land? Even if he does, he might not be able to defeat the extraterritorial demons. And we will still die. A flame rose into the sky, and the short-tempered Huozu appeared. We are already dead, just a remnant will remaining. How can we talk about dying again? Mu Zhu, barefoot and exuding a peaceful and revitalizing aura, spoke. Oh, you old undead. Do you have to remind me that I'm already dead? I had finally forgotten it, and now you bring it up again. Huozu cursed and ran off like a wisp of smoke. Now I won't be able to sleep tonight. The remaining ancestors exchanged glances, their thoughts varied. At this moment, in the 5 elements training ground, Qi Yuan, holding Xiao Jia's hand, looked into the distance. These monsters aren't very high level, only around 40 or 50, with stronger ones at 70 or 80. No, some are even at 90. He looked at the 5 elements monsters, showing a thoughtful expression. If I base my cultivation on the heavenly Tao, won't my foundation be unstable? If I transform the power of the 5 elements into the energy of the 5 elements, can't I reconstruct my cultivation foundation? If I succeed, my foundation should far surpass that of my peers, right? Qi Yuan also considered that his heavenly Tao foundation seemed insufficient. If he filled it with the power of the 5 elements. If he found a desolate planet, could he possibly recreate earth, water, wind, and fire? Enhance your reading experience by removing ads for as low as $1. Remove ads from $1. Qi Yuan held Xiao Jia's hand as they walked through the training grounds. His eyes swept around, taking in information. Gold Spirit, level 48, can be transformed into Gold Essence Qi. A dung yellow monster was rushing towards Qi Yuan. Its entire body was golden yellow, seemingly with solid gold as bones, liquid gold as blood, and the gas it exhaled was gaseous gold. Its appearance was somewhat disgusting. Qi Yuan looked at the gold spirit with disdain and casually slashed it with his sword. The giant gold spirit fell in response. Experience plus 100. Gold essence Qi plus 1 wisp. Not bad, not bad. I just don't know how much gold essence Qi is needed to complete the gold element. One gold spirit could provide Qi Yuan with a wisp of gold essence Qi, which was quite good for him. After acquiring the gold essence Qi, he could feel that his attack seemed slightly sharper, a subtle but noticeable improvement. He carried his sword and held Xiao Jia's hand, heading deeper into the training grounds where more 5-element spirits and more experience and essence awaited. He needed to collect more of the 5 elements Qi to achieve the complete mastery of the 5 elements. In doing so, the 5 elements Forbidden Land would be entirely under his control. The heavenly Tao fragments would also be within reach. Kill. Qi Yuan, accompanied by Xiao Jia, fought in the 5 elements training grounds for 3 hours. Initially, he did not merge with Xiao Jia, thinking that Xiao Jia's body had not rested well and merging would deplete her energy. However, later he decided to merge with Xiao Jia because leaving her alone was dangerous. Given her naive nature, if she were left alone in a seemingly safe place, she might end up falling into the water. Additionally, he wasn't facing enemies of the level of the ugly clothes monster emperor, so merging with Xiao Jia caused minimal depletion to her energy. After merging, Qi Yuan couldn't help but sigh, "We've been married for so long, and I've grown fond of her over time." Of course, Xiao Jia played a crucial role in Qi Yuan's victory over the Garment Forbidden Land. Who wouldn't appreciate such a partner? Some unscrupulous people might even call Xiao Jia, "Mom," directly. Standing 10 meters tall, Qi Yuan was invincible in the 5 elements Forbidden Land, cutting down 2 earth spirits with one slash. In the game, he was on a killing spree, the only regret being that there were too few 5 element spirits. Most of his time was spent searching for the 5 element spirits. It's time to log out. Qi Yuan, as usual, separated from Xiao Jia. Today in the 5 elements training grounds, Qi Yuan had made significant gains. Last time, after defeating the ugly clothes monster emperor, he was level 91, close to level 92. Today, he reached level 92. When merged with Xiao Jia, he could exert the power of level 97, equivalent to the strength of a domain giant. Not only that, but he also acquired a lot of the 5 elements Qi. He obtained 20 wisps of gold essence Qi and 11 wisps of wood essence Qi. The other 3 essences were within this range. With so much 5 elements Qi, Qi Yuan vaguely sensed that to complete the gold element, he would need 50 times what he currently had. In other words, by killing 1,000 5-element spirits, he could achieve complete mastery of the 5 elements. It would take at least 50 days to achieve complete mastery of the 5 elements. That's too slow. Was this game designed by NetEase? Making people collect fragments every day, and even spending money doesn't make it any better. I need to speed up. The biggest problem now is that there don't seem to be many 5-element spirits in the training grounds. I wonder where there's a large concentration of them. Otherwise, I could grind for 5 or 6 days and might achieve complete mastery of the 5 elements, taking control of the 5 elements Forbidden Land. If I remember correctly, there are other talents in the 5 elements training grounds. They've been here for a long time and are most familiar with the place. Tomorrow, I'll look for them and ask where the dens of the 5 elements spirits are. Qi Yuan dug a hole, hugged Xiao Jia, and nestled into the hole. Holding Xiao Jia, he opened the chat interface and looked at the messages, chatting as usual. I feel like I can clear the game soon. Have the Garment Forbidden Land troops gone to your place yet? Their strength is decent, right? After things settle on your end, let's meet up. After logging out of the game, it was still daylight outside. Qi Yuan glanced at the peak of the 7-colored mountain. The palace looked like a fairy palace, and even though it wasn't dark yet, it seemed to hang a full moon. The moon beside Master is exceptionally bright, Qi Yuan muttered inexplicably. For some reason, after logging out, he felt a bit empty inside. The 5 elements Qi indeed transferred to reality. Qi Yuan's attention was quickly drawn away. The technique he practiced was fire attribute. The spells he could use were also related to fire. Now, he felt he could control water and wood as well. With water and wood attributes, I could switch to being a healer. Before, I was a dedicated practitioner and a swordsman in secret, which barely counted as dual cultivation. Now, adding a healer, what would that be? Triple. Qi Yuan felt he was close to assembling the 3 most untouchable professions in the cultivation world. For 3 days in a row, Qi Yuan lived a very regular life. During the day, he played the game. After logging out, he read the techniques and manuals moved from the Black Mountain sect. The days passed slowly. The only regret for Qi Yuan was that he still hadn't encountered other talents in the 5 Elements training grounds. The collection of the 5 Elements Qi was also progressing slowly, with the highest being Gold Spirit, only around 7%. In the 5 Elements training grounds, 3 figures stood in the icy snow. A white-robed, elegant man was fighting a water spirit. Nearby, 2 domain experts stood guard, preventing other water spirits from interfering and affecting the white-robed man's battle. The white-robed man, a domain expert, should have easily defeated an emperor-level ice spirit. The reason he fought slowly was to comprehend the water essence Qi during the battle, thereby enhancing his strength. After an unknown period, a blue light flashed in the man's eyes. He struck the ice spirit with a palm, acquiring a wisp of ice essence Qi. Overjoyed, he couldn't help but let out a long shout. The 2 domain experts beside him showed envious expressions. A red-robed man said, "Brother Tang, no wonder Lord Feather praised you. Your talent is second only to his. In just 1 year, you obtained a wisp of water essence Qi. Before the demon-slaying conference begins, you might reach a higher realm and become a giant." In the 5 Elements training grounds, there are 5 spirits. However, extracting the needed 5 Elements essence Qi from them is extremely difficult. First, while battling the 5 spirits, one must focus on comprehension without external interference. Second, not every 5 spirit slain will yield a wisp of 5 Elements essence Qi, as the probability is very low. Because of this, they stayed away from areas densely populated with 5 spirits and practiced in places with fewer spirits, but it was still very hard to obtain the needed 5 Elements essence Qi. This had to do with talent. The red-robed man's talent, while considered outstanding outside, was dwarfed by Tang Yan's. It might take him 3 to 5 years to gather a wisp of 5 Elements essence. Tang Yan, on the other hand, needed only a year, sometimes even less. This was the gap between them. The bun-haired woman also looked at Tang Yan with envy. Among the talents in the training grounds, Brother Tang's is the highest. Hearing this, the red-robed man remembered something and said, "I heard from Little Green that someone else has entered the training grounds, calling himself the Lord of the Garment Department." Tang Yan was surprised. Lord of the Garment Department? The husband of the bride empress? Who is he? It seems we have another strong talent among us. Tang Yan looked pleased. More talents meant a better chance against the extraterrestrial demons. It seems he's not from our forbidden lands but an outsider who, by chance, entered the Garment Forbidden Land and obtained the Garment Department's legacy, the red-robed man said, his tone a bit sour. This person, unlike us, he has great talent but perhaps has never faced any real setbacks, making him arrogant. On his first day in the 5 Elements Forbidden Land, he declared he would control the land and be the leader of the 5 Elements. Tang Yan was stunned. That's a joke, right? Can't be serious. To control the 5 Elements Forbidden Land, one needs to perfect the 5 Elements. Tang Yan, the top water talent, considered a once-in-a-millennium genius, needed a year to gather a wisp of water essence Qi. The more he gathered, the harder it became. To perfect the water element would take at least 3,000 years, not to mention the other 4 elements. The Garment Department Lord would need talent in all 5 elements comparable to Tang Yan's water talent and then spend 10,000 years to perfect the 5 elements. Clearly impossible. That's why I say the Garment Department Lord is inexperienced, having never encountered true talents, hence his arrogance, the red-robed man couldn't help but say. The bun-haired woman chuckled, "You can say such things among us but don't say it in front of the Garment Department Lord." The red-robed man laughed, "Of course, I'm not foolish. We're all in this together for the demon-slaying conference. I'll praise him to his face and save the bad-mouthing for behind his back." Tang Yan and the bun-haired woman were helpless. At this moment, a lazy voice came, "Didn't your mother tell you not to speak ill of others behind their backs?" The 3 were stunned and quickly looked at the red-robed man's position. A hand reached out from the ground, grabbing the red-robed man's ankle. The 3 were surprised but not flustered. The soil churned, and a handsome man holding a bride-like girl emerged from the ground. Lord of the Garment Department. Tang Yan couldn't help but recognize Qi Yuan's identity. His gaze swept over Xiao Jia and finally rested on Qi Yuan's face. The red-robed man also recognized Qi Yuan, his face showing embarrassment. It was too awkward to badmouth someone and be caught by the person. He forced a smile. "Ahem, apologies, that was my fault. But why was the Garment Department Lord buried in the ground instead of collecting 5 elements essence?" The bun-haired woman asked out of curiosity, voicing the three's question, Lord of the Garment Department, why were you buried in the ground? Sleeping. Qi Yuan decided not to reveal too many game terms to NPCs. What if the NPCs awakened? He had seen a movie where a game NPC awakened and fell in love with a human female player. Sleeping. The red-robed man was wide-eyed. Domain warriors don't need to sleep. Upon reaching the celestial domain, one no longer needed sleep. Sleeping was an inefficient way to rest. I wanted to sleep a bit longer, but you were too noisy, disturbing my dream, so I came up. As a price for disturbing me, you must answer a question for me. Qi Yuan, feeling clever again, had his eyes sparkle. Enhance your reading experience by removing ads for as low as $1. Remove ads from $1. Lord of the Garment Department, what questions do you have? Feel free to ask, Tang Yan said calmly. I want to know where there are more 5 spirits, the more the better, Qi Yuan asked, raising his most concerned question. There were too few 5 spirits here, not even enough to fill the gaps between his teeth. Upon hearing this, the 3 present all doubted their ears. How could anyone ask where there were more 5 spirits? Shouldn't he be asking where there were fewer? 200 miles from here, there is a valley with 200 wood spirits. Does that meet the Lord of the Garment Department's needs? Tang Yan answered cautiously. Qi Yuan was a bit disappointed upon hearing this. Isn't there more? How much more? The bun-haired woman couldn't help but interject. The more, the better. 1,000 is not too many, 10,000 is a bit much. Everyone was somewhat confused, not knowing why Qi Yuan would ask such a question. Entering the training grounds, shouldn't one seek a quiet place to slowly comprehend and gather the 5 essence qi? Why are you looking for a place with many 5 spirits? The red-robed man asked. Qi Yuan gave him a look, thinking this red-robed man was a bit foolish. Of course, to get the 5 essence qi. The more 5 spirits there are, the more 5 essence qi there will be, and the easier it will be to collect. The red-robed man was stunned by this answer. Tang Yan looked at Qi Yuan, thinking that Qi Yuan might have just entered the 5 elements training grounds and had not yet obtained any 5 essence qi, unaware of the tricks involved. He quickly told Qi Yuan the secret. Lord of the Garment Department, obtaining 5 essence qi is not a simple task. You need to pay attention to some key points. However, at the end of his explanation, Tang Yan added, 1,000 miles east from here, there is an abyss, the core area of the 5 elements training grounds, with over 10,000 5 spirits. Tang Yan spoke at length, even detailing the route to the core area. The red-robed man stood aside, wanting to laugh but holding back, waiting for the Lord of the Garment Department to leave before laughing. Otherwise, it would be too embarrassing to laugh in his face after bad-mouthing him earlier. Qi Yuan was slightly stunned upon hearing this. Is obtaining 5 essence qi difficult? Very difficult. Even with talent as extraordinary as Brother Tang Yan, it took a year to comprehend and obtain a wisp of water essence qi, the bun-haired woman answered. Qi Yuan's expression remained unchanged. He looked at the water spirit trapped behind the bun-haired woman and asked, do you still need this? The bun-haired woman was stunned and instinctively replied, no. That's good. Although you are. I don't want to steal your monsters, he said, swinging his sword. The water spirit was immediately cut in half. Experience plus 100. Water essence qi plus 1 wisp. At this moment, the red-robed man, who had been holding back laughter, widened his eyes. He even wanted to rub his eyes to ensure it wasn't an illusion. What did he just see? The Lord of the Garment Department casually killed a water spirit with 1 sword stroke and then comprehended a wisp of water essence qi. Is it that simple? Talent? Impossible. It must be a coincidence. The red-robed man thought so, and Tang Yan and the bun-haired woman also thought the same. Lord of the Garment Department, your talent is astonishing. I didn't expect you to comprehend water essence qi in just a few breaths, Tang Yan praised. He was now certain that the Lord of the Garment Department was a genius with talent even surpassing his own and also of the water attribute. I'm different from you, Qi Yuan didn't think his talent was anything special. Unlike them, he was a player, killing monsters earned him rewards. These NPCs, on the other hand, had to rely on real comprehension. Qi Yuan's words left the 3 present speechless, especially the bun-haired woman. She felt that the Lord of the Garment Department's words were as annoying as the red-robed man's and needed to be blocked. At this moment, Qi Yuan looked at the red-robed man and asked, do you still need those 3 water spirits behind you? The red-robed man quickly shook his head. No, Qi Yuan smiled. Then I'll take them. He walked towards the 3 water spirits with his sword. The red-robed man was a bit stunned. What was the Lord of the Garment Department doing? Could it be? Qi Yuan approached the water spirits and slashed 3 times. The 3 trapped water spirits immediately died on the spot. Qi Yuan gained the experience and water essence Qi. Tang Yan was stunned. The bun-haired woman was dumbfounded. The red-robed man was at a loss for words. 3 wisps of water essence Qi. 3 sword strikes killed 3 water spirits, and the Lord of the Garment Department actually comprehended 3 wisps of water essence Qi. When did comprehending water essence Qi become so simple? Just kill the water spirit. For them to obtain 5 essence Qi, they had to prepare meticulously, find suitable 5 spirits, create a quiet environment, and then slowly comprehend, experiencing failure after failure before occasionally succeeding once. But for him, just kill a water spirit with 1 sword stroke and he comprehended water essence Qi. What kind of monster is this? There must be something wrong with the 5 elements training grounds. The red-robed man wanted to find a water spirit, kill it with 1 stroke, and see if he could comprehend water essence Qi. Unfortunately, the nearby water spirits had been killed by Qi Yuan. Qi Yuan killed the 3 water spirits, handed the big sword to Xiao Jia, and asked again, is it really difficult to obtain water essence Qi? The 3 people remained silent. Tang Yan also felt that the water essence Qi he comprehended today was not that special. The 3 of them looked at each other, not knowing what to say. People are different. Don't lose heart. Keep working hard, young men. Thank you for the information. I have to go now. After saying that, Qi Yuan, holding Xiao Jia, headed towards the core of the 5 elements training grounds. There, countless 5 spirits were waiting for him. The 3 of them were left behind with numb expressions. Did I just hallucinate and think I saw the Lord of the Garment Department? The red-robed man spoke first. Tang Yan said nothing. The bun-haired woman responded, I think I saw the same hallucination. The usually gentle and elegant Tang Yan couldn't help but curse, the Lord of the Garment Department is really, born extraordinary. He sighed and added, the Lord of the Garment Department must be naturally gifted with water attributes, like the father of water spirits, no, the ancestor of water spirits. The red-robed man found it hard to understand. Even with a natural water attribute, it shouldn't be possible to comprehend water essence Qi with just 1 sword stroke, right? Maybe there was something wrong with the 5 elements training grounds. At this moment, a water spirit appeared not far from the 3 of them, charging at the red-robed man. Yes, it was the red-robed man. He seemed to attract more hatred. The sharp-eyed red-robed man saw it first and excitedly shouted, here I go. He rushed over, afraid it would be snatched. But when he killed the water spirit, he got nothing. He was dumbfounded. He remembered what the Lord of the Garment Department had said before leaving, people are different. But, even if people are different, they shouldn't be this different, right? At this moment, Tang Yan suggested, I have a proposal. How about we go to the core area? The red-robed man and the bun-haired woman quickly nodded. All right, after all, people are different. They didn't know when they would next comprehend water essence Qi, and going to the core area wouldn't take much time. Watching someone kill a water spirit with 1 sword stroke and comprehend water essence Qi was a once-in-a-lifetime event they couldn't miss. All 3 of them were water attribute practitioners. Missing such a historic moment would be a shame. 1,000 miles wasn't very far for Qi Yuan, but it still took some time to travel. Especially since he encountered other 5 spirits along the way, he didn't mind collecting them. Even the smallest gains were still gains. Tang Yan and the other 2 chased after him but couldn't keep up with Qi Yuan. Even though Qi Yuan stopped to kill and walk, they still couldn't catch up. However, while chasing, they informed those outside of the situation. After all, the Lord of the Garment Department's talent was too astonishing. If he perfected the water element and combined it with the Bride Empress, he might be able to exert the peak power of the divine domain. Unfortunately, he was too young. Otherwise, given more time, he would undoubtedly be more terrifying than the gods. Qi Yuan didn't know he was being followed by 3 people. He didn't fly directly to the core area. He was very close to level 93 and planned to level up to 93 before going to the core area. Otherwise, no matter how tough his spear was, it would be dulled by thousands of 5 spirits. Increasing his combat power before heading to the core area was the key. Because of this, when Tang Yan and the others arrived at the core area, they didn't find Qi Yuan. The red-robed man looked at the core area from a distance, feeling the terrifying aura inside. Could the Lord of the Garment Department have tricked us? Used a diversion technique and didn't come at all. The bun-haired woman glared at the red-robed man and moved a little farther away from him. You should talk less. Don't you know you attract 5 spirits' attention the most? Tang Yan nodded in agreement. The red-robed man's mouth and person were annoying and often attracted 5 spirits' attacks whenever he appeared. If it was anywhere else, it would be fine, but this was the core area, where even divine domain level 5 spirits existed. You worry too much. Those previous incidents were just coincidences, the red-robed man said, but as soon as he finished speaking, a thunderous roar came from the core area. Tang Yan and the bun-haired woman glanced at the red-robed man. Both immediately started running. At this moment, within the core area, tens of thousands of 5 spirits roared out, densely packed like a stampede. The red-robed man cried out, "Wait for me. It's really not my fault. Stop talking. Hey, don't run towards me. Stay away from me," Tang Yan also complained. The 3 of them fled frantically, followed by tens of thousands of 5 spirits. About an hour later, Qi Yuan, holding Xiao Jia, quietly arrived at the core area. Seeing the empty core area, he showed a puzzled expression. Did I come to the wrong place? However, he scanned the distant mountains with suspicious eyes. He clearly sensed the presence of 5 spirits. The ground is still warm, they haven't been gone long. Did they go to a party? Qi Yuan thought and gritted his teeth. It's too much not to invite me to a party. He entered the core area. For some reason, he felt a bit hot upon arrival. The 5 essence qi in his body also seemed to be boiling. And in the abyss, something seemed to be flickering. Enhance your reading experience by removing ads for as low as $1. Remove ads from $1. Qi Yuan cautiously entered the core area. Ahead lay an unending stretch of mountains. He stopped on a flat expanse. Further ahead was an abyss, seemingly bottomless and shrouded in mist. No animals or plants could be seen within it. However, faintly visible were 5 colors, representing the forces of the 5 elements. These 5 colors were like boiling, flowing paints. If a person fell in, their bones would likely be dissolved. If Qi Yuan, who had yet to begin cultivation, had looked down into the abyss, his acrophobia would have made his legs tremble, and he might have felt an uncontrollable urge to jump. But now, he didn't feel that way. According to typical game settings, shouldn't I have to slay all the 5 spirits here before reaching the final reward area? Unexpectedly, the 5 spirits are gone, and I can arrive here without killing any monsters. Qi Yuan lifted Xiao Jia into his arms. Be careful. Qi Yuan jumped into the abyss. In an instant, he felt as if he had collided with a thin membrane. He squeezed through it. When he looked around, Qi Yuan saw more of the 5 colors. It seemed to be a pool. The pool was filled with the boiling colors of the 5 elements. Qi Yuan felt a tingling sensation on his body. He looked at Xiao Jia, who was turning an increasingly intense shade of red, as if she were in a sauna. She seemed quite uncomfortable in this place. United we stand. Qi Yuan decided to merge with Xiao Jia. Not to enhance his strength or defense, but to protect Xiao Jia. Xiao Jia's true form wasn't very strong, and staying here could easily harm her. It was better to transform into armor, imprinting onto Qi Yuan's chest. Wearing the armor, Qi Yuan moved through the pool. But his speed was slow, as if moving through molasses. This place looks ordinary, there's nothing useful here, right? The 5 colors in the pool were very pure. To use an inappropriate analogy, each color was like a pure substance made of a single element. So, although this place was large, there wasn't much actual substance. His eyes scanned the area, and a series of prompts appeared. Open black lens bracket. This is golden quicksand, gathered from the essence of gold scorched by the great sun. Bathing in golden quicksand can increase the chance of sensing the essence of gold. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. This is wood quicksand, gathered from the essence of wood scorched by the great sun. Bathing in it. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. This is water quicksand, close black lens bracket. What he saw were the essences of the 5 elements, produced by a so-called great sun scorching them. These substances could increase the chance of sensing the essence of the 5 elements. Perhaps very useful for the 3 people Qi Yuan met. But for Qi Yuan, they were almost useless. My drop rate is 100%, so these 5-element quicksands are completely useless to me. Can they even push my drop rate beyond 100%? However, those 3 NPCs I met might find them useful. Their drop rates are probably less than 1%, how tragic. Thinking this, Qi Yuan grabbed a handful of 5-element quicksand. Though useless to him, they were valuable to others, so grabbing a handful wouldn't hurt. Otherwise, coming here for nothing would be too pointless. Suddenly, Qi Yuan paused. He saw something other than the 5-element quicksand. Open black lens bracket Great Sun's flower. Touching it may allow one to hear some remnants of the Great Sun's thoughts. The lucky ones might even acquire some useful techniques. Close black lens bracket. Qi Yuan looked at a wisp of light ahead, about the size of a firefly. He grasped the light in his hand. Disjointed whispers fell into Qi Yuan's ears. The moon continent is my foundation, how dare you? Evil demon from beyond, ah! Great Sun's incantation. I am unwilling. Fragments of thoughts entered Qi Yuan's mind, making him unsteady on his feet. Is standing on the 5-element quicksand consuming too much energy? Have I been playing too long today? I need to log out soon. With this thought, Qi Yuan began analyzing the fragments he heard. It seems like a powerful being encountered another strong being, fought a battle, and lost. Evil demon from beyond. Could this be referring to the game's final boss? Is the Great Sun a god? He fought the evil demon and lost badly, only managing to scorch the demon's leg. It looks like this evil demon is quite strong. The god was probably level 99, and with the support of the bride princess, their combined power was around level 104, yet they still lost to the evil demon. It seems I need to reach level 100 to have a chance at soloing this final boss. And after so many years, who knows if the boss has grown stronger. Unfortunately, there are too few monsters in the 4 forbidden areas. Otherwise, I'd grind to level 999 before taking on the final boss. At this moment, the light in his hand flashed suddenly, like the last burst of life from a dying old man, then dimmed and disappeared. A fragmentary technique entered Qi Yuan's mind. Daydreaming technique. Upon learning that this technique was called the daydreaming technique, Qi Yuan was stunned. Daydreaming. This isn't even as good as daydreaming. No wonder the god couldn't defeat the evil demon, Qi Yuan muttered, this god is even less reliable than me. Then, he absorbed the fragmented information of the technique. The daydreaming technique, true to its name, involved fantasizing about the stars. The technique focused on devouring everything. The early stages were relatively normal, but the later stages were wildly ambitious, aiming to devour the stars and grow stronger. The universe is so vast, am I supposed to take just one bite? Unfortunately, this technique is destined to fail. Qi Yuan's gaze pierced through the abyss, looking at the starry sky above. Open black lens bracket this is the moon's projection, close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket this is the soul-breaking star, the soul-breaking star's projection, close black lens bracket. The starry sky was filled with stars, but they weren't real, just projections, reflecting in the heavens. The stars and moon were fake, so how could one devour them? But if he lived on Blue Star, this technique might have great potential. There are so many stars, eating one a day from the Paleolithic era until the end of Blue Star, and you'd still have some left. Qi Yuan's thoughts wandered. I need to get out, the energy consumption is too high. After obtaining the fragmentary daydreaming technique, Qi Yuan left the abyss and found a secluded spot. He dug a big hole and buried himself in Xiaojia again. After logging out of the game, Qi Yuan felt a bit better. After foundation establishment, I must cultivate techniques to enhance my soul. Qi Yuan resolved. The daydreaming technique is too fragmented, but some of its content seems compatible with the Qi Yuan Sutra. However, I need to find some similar techniques for reference. Qi Yuan was a man with a plan. Unfortunately, Black Mountain sect probably didn't have similar techniques. He could ask Zhongling Su. His junior sister seemed like a wealthy, knowledgeable person. After tidying up, he prepared to visit the thatched cottage next door to see Zhongling Su. Meanwhile, in the thatched cottage, Zhongling Su's face was covered in frost. She opened her eyes, the frost dissipated, and a trace of bitterness appeared on her youthful face. Is this the price of wielding the heaven and earth mirror? After awakening her bloodline, she had a chance to wield the heaven and earth mirror, seeing a glimpse of the future. But such a treasure wasn't something her level of cultivation could wield without consequence. She was left with a significant ailment. Every so often, frost would invade her body, causing immense pain. This time was mild and bearable. In severe episodes, the pain could be intense enough to cause unconsciousness. To alleviate this pain, she needed the help of a cultivator with a water attribute heavenly root at the Purple Mansion stage. The Zhang clan knew some Purple Mansion stage great cultivators, and the clan had Purple Mansion stage elders, but none with a water attribute heavenly root. Even if there were, spending a great deal to alleviate such trivial pain wasn't worthwhile. Sensing something, Zhang Lingsu got up and walked outside. She saw Qi Yuan at the door. "Senior brother, are you looking for me?" Qi Yuan glanced at Zhang Lingsu and stared at her face. "Junior sister, are you sick? Do you want me to make you some chicken soup?" Qi Yuan offered enthusiastically. Zhang Lingsu sighed. "Senior brother, no need. I just didn't sleep well." "What did you come for? Just say it." Seeing this, Qi Yuan didn't hide his intention and explained his purpose. Hearing this, Zhang Lingsu gave Qi Yuan a strange look. "Senior brother, such techniques should not exist in this world. However, it is said that in ancient times, in the East Sea, there was a race called the Giants whose techniques were similar. Unfortunately, this race has long been extinct, and it's unknown if any inheritance remains in the world." "Thank you, junior sister." Qi Yuan felt a bit disappointed but also found it reasonable. Not everything he encountered could be easily resolved. He looked at Zhang Lingsu. "Junior sister, if you have any problems, just tell me. Your senior brother's strength is decent, I can handle ordinary matters." Caring for a wealthy sister was everyone's responsibility. Moreover, his junior sister had helped him quite a bit. Qi Yuan understood the principle of, "You threw me a peach, I'll return you a jade." Hearing this, Zhang Lingsu smiled gently. "Thank you for your kindness, senior brother." Although senior brother was foolish, behaved inappropriately, and wasn't very strong, his nature was still good. Entering the game again, Qi Yuan suddenly found that in the core area of the 5 Elements trial ground, those 5 elemental souls that had gone out to party had all returned. Qi Yuan was particularly happy. "Little Jia, why don't you hide in the hole? I'll be back soon," Qi Yuan said to Little Jia. Little Jia's cold little hand, which was her sleeve, gripped Qi Yuan's clothes. A wooden tag with a crying face slid out of the sleeve. The crying face represented Little Jia's meaning, she didn't want to. "Sigh, do we have to merge every day? How does it feel like we're married and have to pay the conjugal debt every day?" As he spoke, he instantly merged with Little Jia. Blood-red armor covered his body, with sharp spikes all over, dangerous and cold. The huge body, coldly beautiful blood-red, formed a stark contrast with the 5 Hun souls. "My sword thirsts for blood. Unfortunately, you won't bleed. Then, die." Qi Yuan raised his 40-meter great sword, without any fancy moves, simply using the strongest force to slash down. Technique. That's something close combat and ranged spellcasters should consider. He was now just brute force. One sword slashed down, raising several meters high heat waves. In an instant, dozens of 5 elemental souls couldn't dodge in time and became lost souls under Qi Yuan's sword. Level 90 and level 89 were completely different concepts. Moreover, with Little Jia's enhancement, in the core area, as long as he wasn't surrounded by several level 95 elemental souls, he could kill at will. Of course, he had to be mindful of his consumption. Kill. Qi Yuan was like a monster, crashing into a country with a good life, charging and slashing wildly with his great sword. However, apart from the first sword's surprise attack where many 5 elemental souls didn't react in time, killing nearly 105 elemental souls. Afterward, the killing speed obviously slowed down. Too slow. At this rate, it might take half a month to gather all 5 elements. Sigh, I'm so useless, too incompetent. At this time, at some distance from the core area, 4 pairs of eyes were watching Qi Yuan entangled with the 5 elemental souls. Apart from the original trio, there was now a small, thin man. He watched Qi Yuan killing indiscriminately, perceiving the 5 essences, Qi as if it cost nothing. He widened his eyes, his face full of disbelief. The man in red clothes reached out his hand smugly. "Li Qin, hand over the water element crystal." Li Qin looked pained. "This is too outrageous, why?" Originally, the man in red told him that the new clothing department had perceived water essence Qi very quickly, almost 1 per elemental soul. He naturally didn't believe it. The man in red took the opportunity to bet with him. He agreed without thinking. Unexpectedly, it turned out to be true. The man in red got the water element crystal, extremely smug. At this time, Tang Yan was staring intently at Qi Yuan's figure, his face showing disbelief. "Look, he has also perceived earth essence Qi, no, and fire essence Qi too." The others looked, only to see Qi Yuan kill a water elemental soul and charge towards the other 4 elemental souls. Instantly, a large amount of 5 essences, Qi that made people's faces hot spread out. The 4 people present were dumbfounded. Originally, Tang Yan thought the clothing department head only had the top-tier talent in water attributes. Now it seems, this is, top tier in all 5 attributes. Beside him, the man in red clothes saw this scene and couldn't help but blurt out, "Doesn't this mean he might achieve 5 elements perfection in less than a month?" After saying this, the man in red's face reddened a bit. Last time he had just talked behind the clothing department head's back, saying he was arrogant and conceited, having wild fantasies about achieving 5 elements perfection. Now it seems, that wasn't a fantasy, it was real. Moreover, it might only take a month or 2 for the clothing department head to achieve it. Tang Yan gritted his teeth. The usually elegant man now lost his composure. 5 elements perfection, he really can master the 5 elements forbidden ground. This kind of talent, this kind of talent. He spoke and suddenly wept with joy. Could it be that the heavens are taking pity on us? The strength of the outer realm demon was unfathomable. Even the heavenly lord at his peak was defeated by the outer realm demon. Later, in the forbidden grounds, there were also strong cultivators who had reached their limits and rushed into the ground of absolute destruction to explore the outer realm demon's true nature. But most returned empty-handed. Forget about the outer realm demon, they couldn't even defeat the first demon spawn under the outer realm demon, the former heavenly lord's golden armor. The outer realm demon seemed to have gained immortality and simply couldn't be killed. If they couldn't even defeat a demon spawn, how could they hope to defeat the outer realm demon? Enhance your reading experience by removing ads for as low as $1. Remove ads from $1. 300 years later, at the Demon Extermination Conference, a master proficient in divination exhausted his life force to glimpse a corner of the future. The outcome was 10 deaths without life. Yes, no chance of survival, no hope at all. However, even so, these strong individuals still gathered resolutely and united. If there was no way out, they would tread a path with blood. And now, what did Tang Yan see? He saw a genius with talent far surpassing that of a god emerging. If this wasn't the mercy of heaven, then what was it? The other 3 were also affected. They naturally understood what it meant to have the 5 elements perfected. This meant that the leader of the clothing division had a chance to surpass the gods. It also meant a real chance to contend with the foreign demons. Perhaps, the Demon Extermination Conference would no longer be 10 deaths without life, but 10 deaths with 1 life. Tang Yan said coldly, "This matter must be reported to you and Lord Long Pan." As he spoke, he relayed today's findings to the outside. In the 5 elements forbidden land, in a valley, dozens of coffins lay quietly. Suddenly, the lid of the middle coffin was lifted. A beautiful person, who seemed neither male nor female, sat up. Draped in a feathered robe, exceptionally handsome, this was Yu, one of the 2 peak divine realm powerhouses in the 5 elements forbidden land. He looked at the other coffins, his expression as calm as an ancient well. Moments later, the other coffins were also opened one by one. A burly man stood up and spat thickly on the ground. "Lord Yu, didn't we just finish a meeting last time? Why are we being called up again?" An old man who looked dazed muttered, "What time is it? Is the Demon Extermination Conference here?" The other powerhouses all looked at Yu with puzzled expressions. Because, with only 300 years left until the Demon Extermination Conference, they wouldn't wake up without something significant. "Do you still remember the leader of the clothing division from some time ago?" Yu's voice was gentle. "What about him?" The burly man was curious. The other powerhouses exchanged glances. Calling them awake, related to the leader of the clothing division. Could it be that he really was a spy for the foreign demons? Tang Yan sent a message. "The leader of the clothing division has the highest level of water attribute talent, even stronger than his own." Yu said calmly. "Stronger than Tang Yan, his talent is indeed top-notch. Given 1,000 years, he could become a new god. What a pity." A giant sighed. "How much stronger?" someone asked. Yu said faintly, "Not much, just that he can perceive a trace of water essence from a single water spirit." Quote, 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 quote. Silence, dead silence. After about 10 breaths, the burly man spoke with difficulty. "Doesn't this mean he can perfect the water element in a month? Is this exaggerated? Too exaggerated. Who can perfect the water element in a month? Others need thousands of years, and he can do it in a month. If Qi Yuan knew their thoughts, he would definitely say that the difference is actually not that big. Just like the salary difference between an ordinary person on Blue Star and a star earning 2.08 million a day. The most important thing is, not only is his water attribute talent top-notch, but the other 4 attributes are the same. Yu's voice remained calm, but anyone could sense a hint of joy in it. What? All 5 attributes are top-notch. Is this still a human? Damn it. The powerhouses present were all extremely moved. Now, none of them maintained the demeanor of top powerhouses. The coffin land was as lively as a market. Everyone was shocked. They were all divine realm powerhouses, understanding what it meant to have the 5 elements perfected. This meant that the leader of the clothing division had the potential to break through the shackles and walk a path farther than the gods. Unfortunately, only 300 years remain. Suddenly, someone sighed. The divine realm powerhouses present also showed a hint of bitterness. The leader of the clothing division had talent surpassing the gods. But he had just broken through to the divine realm, and 300 years would be tough to hone his cultivation, let alone improve it. At least, there are still 300 years. Yu's voice was gentle but incredibly firm. Now that the leader of the clothing division is here, we should think about how to break the situation. The Demon Extermination Conference was 10 deaths without life, so they would do everything in their power, at all costs, to make it 10 deaths with 1 life. At first, they hid in the Forbidden Land, resisting the foreign demons, perhaps just for their own survival. Humans are selfish, not to mention these old turtles who had lived for so many years. Later, resisting the foreign demons gradually became a mission, an obsession. To say they fought for the common people of the world might seem grandiose, but it was partly true. I propose, divine reflection. Yu said softly. The place was quiet, without even the sound of breathing, and the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Anyone who refuses will be killed. Yu's cold gaze swept over everyone, his tone becoming imperious and domineering for the first time. I have no objections. Neither do I. Haha, as long as we can kill the foreign demon bastard, I'll do anything. The divine realm powerhouses present laughed, none refusing. Divine reflection was a special secret technique mastered by divine realm powerhouses. They could imprint all their insights, including all their experiences, deep into another person's soul. All insights, all memories. This meant they would be completely open to the leader of the clothing division. Moreover, after performing divine reflection, they would also be weakened and need 100 years to recover. So, rarely would divine realm powerhouses use divine reflection, unless they were nearing the end of their life. Yu looked at everyone and said softly, "Thank you all." At this moment, the burly man asked, "Where is Lord Longpan? Why is he not in his coffin?" Yu glanced ahead, towards the Yin-Yang Forbidden Land. He went to the Yin-Yang Forbidden Land. The people there aren't easy to talk to. He has to persuade them to perform divine reflection for the leader of the clothing division. Hiss. Everyone gasped. Longpan, that bearded and silent man, actually went to the Yin-Yang Forbidden Land. It wasn't persuading the strong there, it was clearly fighting them into submission. It seemed that both Longpan and Lord Yu were determined to help the leader of the clothing division grow quickly. At this moment, the space in the 5 elements Forbidden Land fluctuated. Longpan, the bearded and silent man who was just mentioned, returned. His left sleeve was dripping with blood. He looked at everyone and grinned, "The people in the Yin-Yang Forbidden Land have been persuaded by me." No one spoke, looking at his bleeding arm. Longpan was strong, undefeated in his life, except for his defeat against the god who fused with the wedding gown empress. Now he was injured, showing how fierce and intense the battle with the strong in the Yin-Yang Forbidden Land was. Longpan said calmly, "They've been in the Yin-Yang Forbidden Land for too long, their words are weird." A fight was inevitable. However, he added, "But after all, they are our allies. I couldn't go too far." They proposed a condition. The leader of the clothing division must defeat Zhang Hua, then they will perform divine reflection. After saying this, Longpan walked to his coffin, lay down, and stretched out his hand to cover the lid. Everyone else retracted into their coffins. The place returned to silence. Not far away, a girl in green squatted on the ground, hugging her shoulders, silently trembling. At this moment, Shui Zhu, with a gentle face, appeared, gently stroking the girl's head. She didn't speak, just silently stroked. The girl in green cried for a long time, then looked up with red eyes, stubbornly, "Shui Zhu, does it really have to be this way?" Shui Zhu looked kind, "Child, we will not disappear, just exist in another form in this world." Shuizu. The girl in green hugged Shuizu, tears falling uncontrollably. For the leader of the clothing division to perfect the 5 elements meant he would control the 5 elements forbidden land. Qi Yuan emerged from the core area. He looked at the 4 people in the distance, smiling, you all are quite understanding. During the battle, he had noticed the 4, but didn't care. Now, preparing to log off, he decided to greet them. But he found that these 4 had trapped some fleeing water spirits. Not many, just dozens. But these dozens of water spirits were all baring their teeth at the man in red, as if wanting to tear him apart. Leader of the clothing division, please comprehend. Tang Yan said. These water spirits had escaped from the core area, captured by them. Being able to serve the leader of the clothing division, helping him improve, was something worth doing for them. Qi Yuan took his sword and easily killed the dozens of water spirits. He gained a lot of experience in water essence. Although he had killed many water spirits today, it would still take at least half a month to perfect the 5 elements. This made him a bit melancholy. Tang Yan noticed Qi Yuan's expression and asked, Leader of the clothing division, is there something troubling you? We are willing to relieve your worries. Strengthening their ally was something Tang Yan would take the initiative to do. Sigh, it's too slow. I need to kill for half a month to perfect the 5 elements, it's really too slow. Qi Yuan sighed sincerely. The 5 elements forbidden land was a dungeon, the 5 elements training ground was a sub-dungeon, and the core area was a sub-sub-dungeon. As a result, clearing such a dungeon still required half a month. It was too inefficient. He spoke endlessly, calling himself inefficient. Tang Yan, bun-haired girl, Li Qin, man in red, you really are born. He was anxious. He felt that the leader of the clothing division's mouth was extremely annoying. Half a month to perfect the 5 elements. And still feeling slow. It was like the difference between 5 people with different attributes taking 3,000 years and him taking half a month. What was this? Tang Yan calmed down, I will gather others to help the leader of the clothing division trap some water spirits for you to kill. He didn't even mention comprehension, just killing. Anyway, the leader of the clothing division killed to comprehend. Thank you so much. Qi Yuan thought he was smart. Pulling out a handful of 5 element sands, I picked up these little things in the core area, maybe they'll be useful to you. Here, take them. Qi Yuan threw the 5 element sands to the 4 present. Enhance your reading experience by removing ads for as low as $1. Remove ads from $1.